Guys, today we have a special guest. His name is Andrew Hess, and I'm going to introduce him more formally here in a second. But today, what we're going to be covering, or the main theme, is going to be calling store procedures directly from Power Apps, not using a flow. And they came out with this feature just this week, an experimental, or no, I think it's actually a preview feature. So we're going to be talking about SQL Server, Sprocks, and everything that's related to that. But I want to give a big welcome to Andrew. This is the first time he's been on the channel. So welcome, Andrew.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. I've been talking to Darren, maybe about 4 years, like on and off through text and chat. So it's great to be here finally. I know I've told you a while I'd join your show, but I'm here now.
Absolutely. Very cool. So you guys, he runs a YouTube channel called My SharePoint Questions. And that probably tells me right there, you're a SharePoint expert. Would you agree with that?
I started off with SharePoint, but actually I started with project management. So I was actually a project management consultant, and then went to SharePoint, SQL, Power BI, and finally the Power Platform.
Very cool. All right. Let's see. How does Andrew Hess pick a data source?
Oh, that's a very deep question. So if we're going to use SQL, since we're on SQL, I'm thinking that we have large amounts of data, way more than 5,000 rows per month. And when I think SQL, I think big data. That's what I think of. I do have apps where I use SharePoint, as we were saying, but those apps, we're not going to get above 5,000 rows per year, right? We're going to keep the data low and small. And when we use the big data, we need the big boy SQL. And actually, I prefer SQL over Dataverse. Maybe I'm a little biased there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Really like it. So for years, I think I was at 6 years working for the state of Florida, and we use SharePoint because they didn't want to buy licensing, for 10,000 users across the state for that agency I was working for. And I believe that you work for a government entity as well, right?
That's true. So I started off as a consultant, as a Microsoft consultant, and then I started working for the state of North Carolina. And now I'm finally for Wake County, which I think is my home, and they treat me so well. So I haven't had any reason to kind of venture off because Wake County treats me so good. So that's where I'm at now. And we have about 5,000 users, and same thing, trying to get Power Apps Premium for everyone is not the right choice, especially because we have Copilot too. So could you imagine SharePoint, Office 365, Power Apps Premium, Copilot licenses for everybody? You're talking 2-3 million a year. So yeah.
Yeah, we got a comment here. Anything small, I'm using SharePoint for the free license. Very cool. We see Ben out there, and Max says, Andrew Hess, you're my hero.
Oh,
I've been saved more times than I can count with your knowledge. Thank you so much.
I don't know what kind of impact I make, so it's great to hear back from people when people recognize me at these conferences and stuff. It's awesome. I don't know.
And then Data is King also has his own channel here, guys. So I definitely want you to check out Andrew's channel, because you'll probably like it if you haven't ever seen or heard of Andrew Hess. Data is King says, your SharePoint knowledge helped me build a timesheet template without a premium license. I can't thank you enough for your info.
Oh, thanks again. I do know Data is King. He watches my channel and makes comments. So thanks for watching, Data is King.
And so Engineer Your Life says, morning. Well, good morning to you. Engineer Your Life is actually a YouTuber as well. And from what I've seen, perhaps we're seeing like a collaboration with her in the future. She runs a business of loaning out her cars with Turo. And I think she said she's got like a fleet of 100 or 150 cars. So Turo is sort of like the Airbnb, but for cars. And I was checking out some of her videos. It was very interesting. And she's serious about building a power app to help her manage her business. And, so thanks for being here, Engineer Life. And we'll be talking soon about doing some collaboration. And then, here's another one. I've used Andrew's channel multiple times. It's great. Keep up the work.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so that's her side. That's just her side gig. She's a computer engineer. Awesome. Sometimes when people get on Zoom with me, they're like, "Oh my goodness, can't believe I'm talking to you and Kurt. You guys are like celebrities." I don't know. It's just sort of weird. I don't know if you get that, Andrew. I'm sure you do.
I get it too, especially with clients. It actually happened recently with clients.
Really?
We were with the clients. They're like, I can't believe you have this many subscribers. And I was like, I just feel like a normal person. Like, I'm just working hard. Yeah. That's all I'm doing. Yeah.
I sometimes try to tell my wife that I'm a big deal out on the internet, and she just rolls her eyes at me, of course.
You got to go to one of these conferences, Darren. I promise you, people are going to notice you and want your picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I need to. I've been wanting to for a long time. Okay. So, what I'd like to do is get on the topic of the store procedures and everything, but eventually I want to get back to you, Andrew, and ask you some hard questions. We'll put you in the hot seat. For a moment, I was thinking that you're an MVP, but I think I saw a video explaining why you couldn't be considered as an MVP.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this, and when you're a government employee, people can't actually sponsor you to be an MVP. Actually, it's like against the rules. But now I have my own business, and now I'm branding myself. So maybe that's possible. That might be possible in the future. I got to check with Microsoft on that. But yeah, as a government employee, I can't accept gifts. So
I remember that.
Yeah, so there's lots of things like that. I can't be an MVP. If you really look in the fine print, it says no government employees can be MVP.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So we do have 3 or 4 panelists on here that aren't showing their videos. Guys, if you have anything to see or everything to say or share, just show your video and I'll bring you right on. Okay, so we can all now call Sprocks in our app directly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some Power Apps and show you how to turn this on. I think that's probably the first logical step. And Kurt, you're really quiet this morning.
I don't know what to say. I'm just listening.
Hey, Kurt, I'm Andrew. I haven't met you. I've watched you. So actually, I am a fan of yours too. So
it's great.
Can you introduce yourself to me?
Yeah, it's great meeting you too. I've seen you on the live stream almost every. It seems like every weekend I see you, and it's good to see the face to the name now. But I've been knowing Darren for quite a long time. I used to be a teacher in the colleges, and he was one of my students, and that's how I met him. A lot of people know the story, and so I've been working for probably 25, 30 years in the industry, different platforms, so.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll show you where this is in the settings here. I should probably mention that Kurt and I are doing a workshop this next Friday in the afternoon. And what we sort of wanted to achieve, now this is big news this week, so we're covering it, but I want to cover everything that that our workshop students would essentially need to know. Let's see if I can bring this back up. Okay, so if we look at all these topics, I mean, we're gonna, we'll have a deep dive workshop next Friday. Our main goal in this live stream is to help you prepare for that material that we'll cover there. But we're going to cover all kinds of stuff today. So it's not about the workshop per se, but if you want to sort of prepare, you can watch this live stream. Okay.
Right. But I kind of want to say something about that too. So there's a lot of prep to get into the SQL Server, and since the workshop is going to be specifically about stored procedures, you have to get a lot of things up and running before you can actually get to the stored procedure, right? So this is kind of a primer to that, but I think it's a great idea, like for a Saturday morning, to do this, because there's a lot of people who want to get in. Like myself, I've never really had an opportunity to work with SQL Server, and so I kind of want to learn all the pitfalls that you get into, like connecting, just doing the simple stuff. How do I create this thing? How do I connect to it? What kind of problems am I going to have when I'm trying to connect to it? And how to beat that a little bit, and then so there's probably a lot of people, even if you're not even going to deal with the workshop, this is probably a good thing to know and learn and watch this video over and over again until you understand it, because I plan on doing that. So anyway, just
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kurt, this is good. I love having people on that. Whenever I talk about a topic, of course, you bring a lot of other things as well, but this is just like a bonus, because you're going to have questions that are probably going to be the same questions as our viewers.
Sure.
So if you got any question, Kurt, about SQL Server as we're going through this, definitely stop me. Don't feel bad about stopping me, interrupting me, slowing me down, or anything like that.
The big pressing thing I have that I want to know, I just want to put it out there, because if you run into it today, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I've got SQL Server sitting over here on my laptop, and I'm trying to connect to an existing one that I've got set up, and I'm having problems getting my laptop logged into that. So maybe this is going to help that process. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
One thing to start off about this that's really good, Darren, is that it doesn't allow you to run like arbitrary SQL. So it's actually very good in security wise. Like, people can't SQL inject your Power Apps, so you have to be careful with things like that. So security is a big thing when you come to SQL. So that's one good thing about doing it through Power Apps.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
True. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because once you're in Power Apps, it's like seamless. It seems like you're not even there, but you've already got everything set up already. It's already working in the background.
Yeah. Let's talk about what store procedures are. Now, I was about to show you guys how to turn this thing on. So if we go to upcoming features and just type in the word stored, and we have SQL Server store procedures. Directly call Microsoft SQL Server store procedures from PowerFX. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to close this. I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to call it Sprocks.
So do you prefer? So for me, working with the government, right, we would use an on-prem SQL Server. Are you normally in the cloud using Azure? How do you normally do your SQL servers?
Yeah. Large organizations typically will have everything on premise because they don't want to, they can have their own servers internally and all their apps are, but what I don't like about on-premise, and I favor Azure SQL, is that I don't want to go through that. I feel like it would be a big layer, of APIs or whatever of that data gateway, and a lot of times I'm sharing those resources with a bunch of Power BI guys that are hitting the server all the time. And so anyway, it's my preference, and I recommend it to companies that don't already have an on-prem, they don't have the staff, they don't have a DBA or anything like that. Yeah. So let's go back to the outline. So we've turned the option on. Now you guys know how to turn that on. And so I've already talked about the workshop. Somebody asked about details of the workshop. Yeah, I have several price points that I came up with. I should probably show this just in case if anyone's interested.
Absolutely.
And Kurt said, "Wow, Darren," I told him what I was thinking. He's like, "Wow, Darren, that's a little complex there. It's not very simple, straightforward." So
he had a scheme, a pricing scheme that rivaled Microsoft's licensing scheme. So I was like, "What the heck?"
That's funny. Okay, continue to sign up.
Do you mind if I jump in again, Darren? So actually,
sure.
My first Power App was with SQL. So
really,
my first Power App came to be because of COVID, right? So Power Apps became the big thing, and I can't talk too much about it, right? But I could just say we took our data and stored it in SQL on-prem. That was my first Power App because it was all about security. And so we just took the data and pushed it right into a SQL on-prem server. So that's where I actually started. And it was rough because I actually did that in like 2 days. I created an entire Power App.
Wow.
In 2 days. Yeah. it was actually, and it was not the best Power App. I promise you. It was a mess. And it was all using the out-of-the-box forms and kind of throwing it together as fast as possible because we had to have a way to collect that data.
My first Power Apps was atrocious.
Yeah.
Absolutely atrocious. And oh my goodness. Let's see if I can get that out of the way there. Yeah, I look at it today and I'm like, oh my goodness. My students, even probably before they came to me, could probably write a better app. I just didn't understand it. You know, all the background in software development and computer programming. I just wanted to, you know, say button one dot text or whatever equals a string.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I even tried to use set, not as a function, you know, and I'm like, I was super frustrated. And it took me a few weeks to like start to get used to it. So I wanted to at least show this a little bit. I'm going to hit F11, go full screen. So Miro is a tool. If you guys are visual at all, Miro is amazing. So I've got a link to that in the, actually just put it in the chat. And if you go to, I should probably show my my links, my overlays, so you guys can get there. If you go into the Power Platform community, you'll see it's pinned at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over these because I've had a lot of questions about this. So you start here. Are you interested in workshops about Power Apps? If it's no, then I've got a link back to school with a funny little GIF. Well, there is a GIF of it, but it's not animated there. And hey, a lot of my people, they just like my free stuff. You know, maybe it's 90% of my audience. They don't want to pay any money. They just want to, and that's completely fine. So I have the YouTube channel. I got, you know, everything that I put out there is mainly on YouTube, and in school, you can get your questions answered there by either me, Kurt, my staff, or other people in the community. So anyway, and you can email us any ideas for content you want to hear about. But if you are interested, you can just sort of go down here if you want, just on demand. If you want to see, you know, get access to every workshop pretty much once a week, you can pay the $97 a month. If you just want one, it's $25. And so that's a half off discount. And then if you want access to everything, including the SQL, you know, the store procedure workshop that we're going to have next Friday, if you want access to everything with the workshops, we have it at $147 a month. And then if you're just interested in this particular workshop, you can come in, and I put it at $97 a month, not a month. It's a one-time cost of $97 because they're relying on me setting up an environment, a Power Platform environment, and an Azure SQL database. I'll set up everything, and you know, I can confirm with you that everything is set up for it even before we do the workshop. But if you have your own SQL, you have your own Power Platform environment already set up, and you've tested it, then you might as well go with the half off discount there. So I was trying to save people the most money by having options to allow them to pick precisely just what they want. So
Darren, can we go backwards just a little bit, because you kind of went kind of quick through that.
I did.
So if you go up a step to the $147 a month, now what is that about?
Well, you get you know, I'll probably just show you here. It's probably the easiest. I've got, you guys are probably all familiar with the school environment. Okay, so I pull this over here, and then you scroll down, you'll find Andrew has. So I started adding your videos here, Andrew, but
nice.
I'm not keeping up on that as much as I should.
No, it's fine. It's awesome. I can't believe I'm even there. So thank you.
Right here, Parameterized Workshops. So what's cool about this is that, it's pretty much a subscription or a membership to this school course. So I'll break it down by month and have all the workshops. So a lot of these workshops, we have a follow-up. So it's not just like a little 2-hour thing. We're,
Yeah.
Getting to a point of like, completeness was really important to us. So a lot of times we will have a follow-up. So I've already got links out here for how to install SQL and an overview of SQL Server. I've got a prep video for how to create a Azure SQL database. So all that's out there. And you see we've got links to downloads and everything. So you'll be able to access any of the live workshops, and you'll be able to get at all the past ones. And what's sort of cool about that, guys, over a year, you're going to have access to all kinds of stuff,
Yeah, between that and the personal pocket coaching, if your kid get good at Power Apps, there's a problem. There's an awful lot going on there.
Yeah. Well, probably what you need is practical labs and assignments here from Kurt. He did a really good job with that.
I can't wait. I've got some really good ideas for some more practical labs and assignments. I can't wait to have the time to go in there and start developing that a little bit.
I will say I am a fan of that bouncing ball. I like that idea.
The bouncing ball.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good practical, just the way to think through the math and make it bounce off the walls and have boundaries.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it really teaches people how to be real programmers. I think that's the difference, right? Between writing code and actually writing and being a programmer.
Exactly. Yeah.
That red ball video was the most. Has been the most viewed video out of all of those PPC videos. And
it just goes to show you really quick too that you never know. Like I just threw that out there. There's a last second thing. Let me just put that in there. Who knows where that's going to go? You just never know. And so it ends up being something really important. So I guess I said that to say, you might think that your idea is too simple or whatever. Sometimes it's the simple things that really matter,
Yeah. A lot of my videos, when I get too detailed and I go too far down into it doesn't get that many views, right? Because it's too specific. And then if I kind of broaden it up, then I think it's a better video. Keep it simple, right? That's what I always live by. Keep it simple. Yeah.
Small chunks. We eat big steak one mouthful at a time.
I like it. Something I do want to show you. I want to make these show notes available to you guys, and I'm going to get a link to that right here, and I'm going to put that in the chat so you can actually see all these notes. And as soon as I update them, you'll get a copy of that. So I created a website for my Obsidian note taker, and I just keep it updated with all kinds of links to stuff that I find helpful, and then you guys can get at it there. All right. So what are store procedures?
Yeah, that's a big topic. What is that?
And you want to tackle this one?
And why do we care? That's the other thing. So what are they? Okay. And why do we care about them? Yeah.
To me, it's about improving code reusability, security, performance of SQL. It's almost like a Power Automate in SQL. It's kind of like it can do some tasks for you, but in a secure way. I think that's the easiest way to break it down.
Right.
One of my main things is the speed.
Yeah, there you go. The speed. Yeah.
I mean, and if you just do a patch, sometimes it can like take a second or two, which is like really slow. What were you going to say, Kurt?
I want you to go ahead and finish what you were going to say.
Yeah. So just the speed of it.
Okay. So I guess I want to talk about the fact that it's a procedure. Let's just talk about that.
There you go.
Because you think about it, the SQL Server, you're dealing with select statements, right? And you're doing add records, updating records, deleting records, creating records. maybe tables, doing stuff like that, just your standard stuff. And that's what you use your SQL, your select statements with, right? That's what people think about SQL. But see, what happens if we've got other things that we want to do outside of that, apart from that, that just don't get handled nicely within your select statements, within your SQL statements? And I call them SQL statements because, really they're squeal, right? It's SQL statements, guys. So, there's only so much you could do with that. I mean, these days in SQL Server has done a really good job of making that so it's really aggregated, which means there's a lot of functions hanging off the side of it, of that select statement, that allow you to do things like averaging or doing some kind of standard deviation type stuff. You can do that. But sometimes you need to go out there and work with a data set, maybe an entire different data set that's not even related to this tables, just to pull in some data. You can go out there with a procedure and do that. They've got so many functions out there, and they've got an entire language called T-SQL that Darren's typing up right now. There's an entire language that allows you to write these baby programs. That's what I call stored procedures. They're baby programs, and they allow you to go out there and take SQL and just make it to a whole nother level. It's huge now, right? It's the whole universe is open to us. I could talk all day about that.
Well, jump in if you get more excited there, Kurt. Some I do want to nip in the bud, Sprocks. It's just a shorter way of saying stored procedure. And I got 6 kids, and I'm like, whenever I pick a name for one of my kids, it's like, listen, it needs to be 1 or 2 syllables. You have something with 4 or 5 syllables. I mean, people will shorten it,
So real quickly, maybe about that. Does anybody know? To me, a stored procedure is really just a user-defined function, really, right? You're defining that. But why do they call it a stored procedure? Why is that? Why do they call it that? Why don't they just call it procedures?
Because maybe
it's a trick question. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know precisely why they said that or named it like that, but my thought is that it's a function, it's a block of code that is stored in the database.
Okay,
and,
it's like in the database.
Yeah.
Okay, so this isn't like. I guess that's a good point. Yeah, it's not like you're sitting in a module somewhere, or you got your bag of tricks. It's in your database, right?
It's a database object.
Very good.
SQL Server.
There you go.
So everything is sort of like an Active Directory, or now they're calling it intro. Everything is an object, So a table is an object, a user is an object, the stored procedure is an object, a view is an object. But I want to mention, now we can't use this in Power Apps, but you can create a user-defined function.
Yes, yeah.
Within your database as well, and that will be an object. So keep that in mind. Where if you want to, I haven't done a lot of user-defined functions in SQL. I just know that it's out there, and I would love to find a reason to use it. But
so just about that topic right there, Power Apps has got this new thing called user-defined functions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fully baked yet, right? It just allows you to do declarations. It doesn't allow you to do behavioral code within that yet. So there's not a lot you can do with that yet, So maybe we could use stored procedures as a workaround to go out there and do some tasks that, within a function and make a repetitive call, right?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
And if you think about if you have a custom thing that's just all over the place. Let's say we've got our own generated customer number, and it starts off with maybe the year they were created or whatever, you have it like dashes in there, cust 01, that type of stuff. And let's say, it's sort of, in this scenario, I think, this is a very normal formish to do a customer number, but sometimes they do that for a unique identifier or a primary key for a table. Mm-hmm. I don't like to do that. But let's say all over your apps and your databases, maybe you need to grab the middle string between cust dash and the ending thing. You just need to grab like a numeric ID or something. And so you can create a user-defined function and that you could just call, and it would do that. So that's what I think about.
That's pretty smooth.
Yeah, how you could use. And the thing is, we can't use user-defined functions in Power Apps, but think about it. You have all your store procedures and your views that would use these user-defined functions, and they're stored in the SQL Server. So, you put everything, a lot of things in there that sort of offload anything that can speed up your Power Apps application. I just think is, yeah.
So now another question here. I'm full of them. So, Dataverse, Dataverse is kind of like a SQL. Well, it is. It's SQL Server.
Right. It is. Right? It is. Yeah.
And it's got a bunch of training wheels put on it, right?
Yeah.
Can we create store procedures in Dataverse, or will we? Do you think maybe we'll be able to someday?
Someday, right? That's what I think. Someday. Dataverse is pretty new, right? Because it was called the common. What was it? The CDS, the common data source. Dataverse kind of came from that, and
yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think someday it will happen.
So I'm wondering if this is going to be like the workaround. So because when I was seeing the user-defined functions in Power Apps, and the fact that they're just declarative, they're not. You can't do behavioral code, like I said. Maybe that's what they're going to go. Maybe that's the direction they're going to go. They're going to say, instead of us worrying about that, we're just going to do store procedures and Dataverse and SQL Server and be done, right?
I think that's what they'll do. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, we we Sammy. Perfect time. Sammy. I can't wait to join the. Okay, yeah.
Nice seeing you again, Sammy. We had a chance to talk to him. We had a Zoom call with him not that long ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and what a great personality. What a great guy.
Yeah. He's going to be a great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great news right there from Hassan.
Yeah. So
that is the power of Power Apps and Darren together.
Well, and Andrew, see, it takes a village, folks. It takes a village. You got to get, Darren's got his strengths. You definitely got your strengths. Hopefully I'm bringing my little things to the table too. It seems like we all just have our little thing. And if you just go and collect it from everybody, it's the village, and
exactly. That's what I think Darren commented on one of my videos. I was like, Bruce Lee, be water, form to where you are and come together. It's the power of the Power Apps community. That's what it is. And honestly, this is the best community of any kind of software I've ever been in. Right. Power Apps and Power Platform community is amazing. Everybody's so friendly. It's a great community to be a part of.
I've never seen anything like it. And I think because I was trying to develop something like that long time ago, back in the 90s, and I could never get it. And I think you just hit something there, Andrew. I think that the Power Apps community comes from a lot of there's a lot of IT people in there, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of other people that aren't IT in there. They're just trying to get some stuff done. They're just folks. And IT people back in the 90s, it just seemed like IT people were trying too hard to be important. They were trying to be important. And it's like everybody was like, it's like have you ever been on a plane going across the country or something? And everybody's like on the plane, and everybody's trying to act like, oh, I've done this a million times, But inside you're all going, I hope this thing don't crash, man. They're all freaking out. Inside, they're scared of heights and freaking out, but they're trying to be all tough, I think that's what IT does, a lot of times.
Oh, definitely. Actually, I kind of learned from my first job to not be like that from people I worked with. Yeah. I was like, as soon as I started sharing and training other people, that's when my career took off, right? Yep. When I was my heads down coding in my corner, my career was not going anywhere. Right. But as soon as I started sharing with everybody, that's when my career really took off.
Absolutely. Get rid of the visor and the pocket protector and start sharing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yes. But I love that though. This community is really I've never seen anything like it. It's a phenomenon.
Yeah. I've never been the smartest guy in the room. And when people see that, hey, do you need help? And so I was used as a resource, at that position I had with the state of Florida. And once people learn that you teach, you mentor, you're there to help them, that whole facade of, this guy, he's a software developer. I bet he thinks he's something, Yeah.
Actually, I went to a training recently on ChatGPT, and so it was on very basic concepts, and I was like, I just want to connect to the API, and I didn't want to be the smart guy in the room. I was like, but I really want to learn how to connect to the ChatGPT API. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. So you don't want to be. So.
Well, you'd never learn anything if you're always the smart or believe that you're smartest guy. You have nothing else to learn, right?
Exactly. You can learn from people who don't know what you know. Maybe they have a different point of view. Like I might work with HR, and then I learned their point of view, and that can totally help me make an app that's better for them in UI UX. So you can always learn from everybody.
And if you want to learn about somebody, make them the smartest person in the room. Just make them that, and you'll learn.
Exactly.
People like to be smart, you know.
But
or they like to be seen as that, you know.
Now we're getting into emotional intelligence topics.
Oh my goodness! But you know, I just want to say before we jump off this ship, because I think it's such a great ship we're on. That's one of the things about Accelerator, you know, that I absolutely love about Accelerator is it takes this Power Platform network to a whole nother level. And we've got this small group of people here. They all bring something to the table. And it's just and in fact, I'm sure that all the people that are in Accelerator would say the same thing. It's like, it just takes everything to a different level, and it's hard to explain it. You almost got to be there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. And we actually have 3 or 4 people in the Accelerator off to the side. They're not showing their video. If they did, I would bring them on. But that's one of the benefits of the Accelerator. You could be a panelist on here. I think I just heard a blip. We have another Accelerator student that just signed on. And once I get to a regular attendance of close to 10, I'm going to have to upgrade to something or other to do live streams from, because it only handles 10, panelists. But good stuff. So let's go up here. Okay, so it's very secure. And Andrew, you said it's like Power Automate, and I said it's so fast.
That's the main reason. I think that's the main reason, is the speed of doing those calculations over large amounts of data. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me do a little arrow here. I like to use my emoji in my notes. And what I was always told when I was learning SQL Server with my coworkers and the DBAs is it's compiled and it's on the server, and it's this it's like, oh, okay, it's compiled, but yeah, it's lightning fast. And I sort of want to, so hopefully you guys are familiar with SQL Server Views. Now you've got Views in SharePoint, you have Views in Dataverse, but in SQL Server you could have it's pretty much a select statement, and feel free to mention any other features of Views, Andrew or Kurt. But that's how, if I needed to do a join within Power Apps, or if that was like an integral part of the app, I'd say, hey, we should be using SQL Server for this. Now I think you can do joins as well inside of Dataverse, if I'm not mistaken. You just create a view, and I think it's more for like the forms and the views, and within Dataverse. I always thought, okay, well, that's model driven, but I believe that, I think I actually tried it out one day. I'm like, view, okay, I wonder if I can. Now I've never found a way of how to use a view in SharePoint as a data source. Is that even possible, Andrew?
I've seen third-party apps that do, and actually you can call upon views in Power Automate. So when you do your filter queries, you can filter on specific views in SharePoint. So you only pull certain columns and you don't pull all the data. So there are ways to do that in Power Automate. Yeah.
So now that, just real quick, now that you said that, when you have a connection in Power Apps, you have to have a connection to SharePoint, right? And that's the same as within Power Automate, correct? Yeah.
They're the same connectors, actually, the exact same connectors.
Okay. So since they're the same connector, and I'm glad you said that, because that was my question. Why can't we do the same things then? Why can't we?
Almost. I feel like Power Automate is a little bit ahead of Power Apps connectors, but if you do a connector in Power Apps and then you look it up in Power Automate, it can help you visualize it a lot better. I actually did that recently. So yeah,
so
I think it's useful to look at it in both.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt. They have the function available in Power Apps. And so then Power Automate, you go over there and watch it and see how it's done basically is what you're saying with that, right?
You can't watch how you can kind of get a different view, a different viewpoint. Like I was using one called Office 365 Users. I think you probably have used that one in Power Apps. Look that one up in Power Automate, and you'll see a lot of the different steps that you can run through or actions. Yeah.
Right. There's this. You'll see the steps coming through. Is what you're saying. It kind of diagrams it a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. It gives you more of a visual, right? Instead of the code. Yeah.
That's a good point. So maybe I should do that whenever I'm trying to do a Power Automate. Just see if I can do the same thing in Power Apps.
Exactly. Do it. Yeah. Do it.
Absolutely.
So I have a question I got to ask you about, Andrew. It's not related to SQL Server, but it's a question that comes up a lot, which is at what point does a SharePoint list become sluggish, non-performant, etc.? How many rows of data?
Specifically, after 5,000 rows, you can't do group bys. You lose some functionality in SharePoint. Now, I have seen SharePoint lists that have been 1 million rows, right? I've seen that. I don't like SharePoint lists to get above 5,000 rows. That's personal opinion, but I have seen them way up there, right? I've seen like 10 years of data in a SharePoint list.
Wow.
So
do you archive any old data, like say a year, whatever, into another SharePoint list?
Yeah, that would be ideal, or put it somewhere else, archive it. I mean, I've seen people archive it to Excel. Maybe you don't want to hear that, but I've seen people archive a SharePoint list to Excel and store it in a library instead of keeping it in the list. So you don't lose the data. Yeah.
Now, you don't use Excel as a data source for your Power Apps, right?
I want to get on that topic because let's say I can create a Power App in 20, 30 minutes, and it's for a holiday get-together, bring in your food.
Okay.
Would you want someone to create a SharePoint list? Or what if they just used an Excel backend because they couldn't use Microsoft Forms? It's not as customizable, but you just want people to bring in food and make a Power App for it, and you can do it in 20, 30 minutes. Would it be wrong to use Excel?
Nope.
Now, what I noticed was that only one person can be in there at a time. Have you found that to be true?
In where? In Excel or in Power Apps?
Either. What I noticed was I had Excel up on my screen. It was still on my OneDrive. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to connect to it. And it's like, nope, you can't do that. It's open. And I thought it's the same way with Power Apps. If I'm using the Power Apps, it's using the Excel as a backend. The second user trying to access, like, nope, it's locked. Somebody else is in there.
Yeah, don't open your data source while people are still using it. It's kind of like, I don't know, I guess like forums. Yeah.
But what if I close down Excel and I'm using the app and it's using Excel as the backend?
Can more than one person be in there when I have it open? But I'm working on it by myself. I don't know if another person has it open. If two people have it open, what happens? That's a good question.
But you know,
but yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you pose a great use case for something like that if you want to use Excel. You know, there's times when I don't really have to have anything looking nice. I just use a piece of scratch paper. You know, nobody else is going to see this, and I just want something done quickly. Maybe that's okay to use Excel for something like that. But if it's
Power Apps is for citizen developers. It is not for us IT people. At least that's my opinion. Of course, us IT people have our data structure and security and all these ideas. But if someone can throw a Power App together in 20 minutes and they have an Excel backend, I'm not against it. I'm not going to stop them, right? Why would you stop them? That's the question as a manager.
Well,
would you tell them no?
So here's the thing. What you bring up is good. These citizen developers, we call them. I think it's a unicorn, but these citizen developers, to do something in 20 minutes, it's not going to be much of a program. It's going to be something simple, like like doodling on a piece of scratch paper, and we're done. You know, but you don't see that though. You hardly ever see that. Almost everything that people need to develop, it's something for their company that's important. And I guess I'm saying all that to say, if you care about your data and you want to make sure that the integrity is intact, you can't be doing that in Excel. You've got to go to at least SharePoint.
100%. At least SharePoint. But this is where I guess it's a governance question, right? So if you tell people, you identify them, I think Darren said this last time, is you say you can't do Power Apps unless you do training at our business first. And this training is 2-3 sessions. And once you do that, then we'll allow you into Power Apps. And so then once they have that, if they choose to use Excel backend, you say something like, oh, this cannot be a production app. This cannot be serious. This cannot be business critical. If you do anything business critical, do not put it in Excel. Or then, we're going to have to tell you to move to SharePoint. Or
right. If you're going beyond tic-tac-toe, you need to do something different, right? But if you're just playing a tic-tac-toe game on there, or you're just trying, this is just a simple app that keeps track of my recipes. But see, if you care about your recipes though, because you never know when Snuffy Smith's going to get into the data and delete your Excel spreadsheet or go in there and mess it up. You want something. If you care about your data, you got to move it away from Excel. Now, spreadsheets. Because we poo-poo the Excel spreadsheet storage, I'm not trying to say that that spreadsheets have no use. They've got great use cases. There's good needs for that, but it's separate from when you go to developing an app that's going to be there for a little bit more than a month. You need to go beyond that, right?
Totally. I mean, there's arguments for and against it, but I never want to be 100% no. A lot of IT managers, professionals, they're like, no, 100%. But if, let's say, we're in a department that literally has no IT people, and they understand Excel. They don't even know SharePoint. And you may think this doesn't happen, but this does happen. I've been to clients. They don't know SharePoint. They don't know anything, but they do know Excel. And if they can create something simple and use Excel, I'm not going to tell them no. And we shouldn't either, but because everybody gets advice. Everybody gets a chance to learn from the burn, right? You're going to get burnt. You're going to go out there and use that spreadsheet, and you're going to lose your data, or somebody's going to come in there and corrupt it somehow, and you're going to say, well, I should have went to SharePoint. At least SharePoint has versioning control, right? And you can restore it.
They do, and data typing. They got data typing. You can't just go into a cell and change the data. And, that number is a string now.
Yeah. Yes. Very true. Very true.
So what I've believed, now Data is King said here previously, the last comment, Excel Online has co-authoring. And I've always believed that to be true. If you're using, the cloud-based version of Excel, that you can have co-authoring like Google Sheets, right? But let's say we create an app and the people are only accessing that Excel spreadsheet through our Power Apps app. Well, it's the Excel spreadsheet is sitting in somebody's OneDrive
or SharePoint list.
Yeah, but what I always say about Excel, like never, ever use Excel, because only one person can be using your app at a time. And I just want to make sure that I've been right on that. It's something that something happened and like a second person couldn't get in. I'm like, oh, well, why would you use Excel if only one person could be in there at a time?
I don't want to say that's 100% correct or right or wrong right now, unless I try it myself. So I'd have to try it myself to give you that answer. That's one question where I don't want to say I know the answer to. So once again, we don't know everything. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Absolutely. So what I was going to do while you guys were talking, I brought this up to the other thing. I was trying to connect to my OneDrive.
Yeah.
And it's been sitting here for like 3 minutes already.
I would put your Excel sheet in a SharePoint library and try.
Okay. And maybe that's what's going on is I've always tried it with OneDrive. And I'm like, I don't want other people using my spreadsheets and my OneDrive. So you brought up a good point that I don't think of very often, which is to host that thing in SharePoint, which is made for collaboration and documents. So maybe that is a workaround for that.
Yeah. I could go on a talk all about OneDrive or SharePoint, where to put your documents, right? And like you said, SharePoint is for collaboration. OneDrive is for me. That's all there is. Yeah.
Absolutely. So very good. And by the way, guys, if you go over to the free community, which, I'll put the link back up there just in case somebody now wants to access it and they don't know how to get there. So I'll actually show what, so data is king. Hopefully data is king. You don't mind me. Let me move myself around a little bit so people can see. Is Kindle. So if you go up here and say Kindle, so he actually posts a lot of jobs out here, guys. So if you're looking for a Power Apps job, you go up here and just do a search for.
I just want to say that guy in a cube, he is hilarious. So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very funny guy. So he makes Power BI fun.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I need that.
Yeah. Let's see. So we should have him down here. Now, what's useful if you click on his username, okay, not only he's saying, hey, Patrick is SQL Saturday in Atlanta. So that's cool. And then if you look around, IT specialist in Virginia. And he talks more about the SQL Saturday IT specialist position in Hawaii.
Let's all move.
Yeah, I want to go to Hawaii. I thought Florida was great, but no, I think they got it even better there. Okay, so at Alex says, repeat who employs. So if you're talking about what I'm showing on the screen here at Alex.
These look like government jobs, like usajobs.gov. So
yeah.
If you're looking for security in your career, government is a good place.
And I think he's got more out here, so it's all paginated. The Power Apps differences in a government tenant. Andrew, would you like to blow
forever about that? I don't want to be biased, but I feel like Microsoft just doesn't. Yeah, I don't know how to word it, but the GCC is so delayed. At least like 6 months for features. We don't even have Copilot yet, and I'm begging to use Copilot Studio. I want to create my own bots that and I want to do all this work. So I'm sure that we do not have stored procedures yet in our GCC tenant.
Sure.
Everything takes longer. It has to go through, certain background checks and all these other different checks before they push to the government. But the great news about GCC is, if you've ever been on like social media and you see Office 365's down or SharePoint's down or something's down, GCC does not go down. Yeah, it's still up and running. Like I've never seen it down. Yeah.
I'm sure they host stuff for like Department of Defense and all kinds of stuff. Yes. And it might be like a bigger tier than just regular government, right?
And it's so much better now than it was back when, in the 90s. I remember working with the Army and the guys were using DBase 4 when we were doing Clipper and Visual Basic. And they were still using DBase 4 back there, because they just couldn't get in it, and they were scared to death to have Ethernet hooked into the headquarters. You know what I mean? I remember those days. And so right now, when I hear 6 months, I'm thinking, well, that's not so bad.
It's 6 months is what Microsoft says.
Oh, okay.
It's longer than that for a lot of features. Like, I still kind of, there's Dataverse for Teams. I want, even though they renamed it to Copilot Studio, virtual agents for teams. Like you can take a virtual agent and put it in a team, but no, I want to use that back end of Dataverse for Teams with virtual agents, and that's not available. It just takes longer. We always have to warn our users. Just because you go to these trainings doesn't mean that we have the features.
Yeah. Chris before. Hey, Chris, we haven't seen you in a while.
Oh,
so he's an accelerator student.
He's in Atlanta. What was his name? Darren.
The
guy in a cube is his YouTube channel. Huge following. I think it was. Not sure where it was posted. Oh, right there. I guess his name is Patrick LeBlanc.
Okay.
Very, very funny guy. I met him last year at the Power Platform Conference. So his training was full to the max, no seats, people lined up all around the entire room. So great guy.
Very cool. Now, Andrew, do you have any idea what Microsoft Fabric is?
Yeah, it's
Good. I want to hear it.
oh, well, we could talk forever. So at my work, right, and also Fabric's not available in GCC. So first off, Fabric is not available in GCC yet, but it is like the outer shell to Power BI, and they're having all these other features, and Power BI is up under Fabric now. There's all kinds of new functionality to go into what Microsoft Fabric is. They're adding, I think, semantic, they're adding all these features of what Fabric is, and Power BI is just a part of it.
Okay. Yeah. I asked ChatGPT, what exactly is, because I'll watch the marketing video from Microsoft. I'm like, I understand it even less now, you know? So I said, ChatGPT, tell me this at a fifth grade reading level. What is this Fabric stuff? And it's like, okay, remember how you had Legos? I'm like, yeah. And it's like, well, sort of like a UI front end where you have like panels of different things, you put them all together. And for me, that just sounds like a dashboard that you use Power BI for.
It's like a dashboard of dashboards. Yeah.
Okay.
There's all kinds of new functionality that they're planning for Microsoft Fabric. Actually, I remember when Power BI came out and it was only Power BI desktop. There was no cloud. And so that took forever for Power BI desktop to go to the cloud. So I think Microsoft has plans for Fabric. We'll see as they come out.
So I do have a question. Ever thought about making a Gantt chart on Power Apps? It's not explored a lot, but I think I made the best one. Oh, well, I'd like to see that, Alex.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. As I said, I was a project manager before I was a SharePoint developer. So,
okay.
Gantt charts are huge. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to make a Gantt chart in Power Apps?
No, I don't think I tried to make the Gantt chart in Power Apps. Because you have things like Microsoft Project that are meant for that. So
yeah,
when you have other tools that can do that, why recreate the wheel? But maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a reason. Yeah.
Now, Kurt, we had one of our accelerator students named David, and he wanted to have like task management for these people that had different shifts. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, I do.
And awesome. The look of it, we had something that looked like a Gantt chart. Now, it really wasn't a Gantt chart, because if something is dependent upon something else, if it takes longer, it pushes all these other things out, right? In a Gantt chart.
I never thought of doing a Gantt chart, but using the rectangle, you can make a pretty good Gantt chart, I think. You'd have to, I don't know. One thing I wish that Power Apps would have is if they had control arrays. If we could have control arrays like we did back in, remember, I don't know, Andrew, did you work with Visual Basic at all?
Not really. Maybe I'm a little, I did in school. We'll say that. Yeah.
Okay. What about did you do any kind of C# stuff or .NET program or anything?
Yeah,
like
I started with C#. Yeah, and .NET. I've done a little bit of .NET too. Yeah.
Okay, so you understand dynamic arrays then, and instantiating arrays and elements of it. So I wish that in Visual Basic it was real simple. They did control arrays. You could have an array of controls, and you could like an array of text boxes or an array of rectangles. And so just think about that. You could call upon it whenever you needed it. Power Apps doesn't have that. It's all static. That control is static, and you can't add to it. Except for the gallery. Now the gallery, they've made that somewhat. Yeah. It's almost like a control array, but you could do a Gantt chart like that though with that, I think.
Yeah, and I do agree that Microsoft Project requires special license and it's expensive. So yeah.
And I guess that's something that I thought about with Power BI. That we've got chart controls in Power Apps, and I spent a little bit of time working on those. And a lot of people think, why did we do charts? We got Power BI. Well, I mean, sometimes I want to have it in my app right there in the moment, and be able to just click on it, and we don't have to deal with the licensing, right?
Yeah, and when you query Power BI and you try and filter it based on your Power App, it can be delayed, or even a refresh of that data can cost you consumption of your licenses every time you refresh your data source. So there are reasons to use charts in Power Apps. More simplistic than the complexity of Power BI.
Yep.
So I did find that video for you at Alex. I'm going to post it in the chat. And I think this could be a good beginning of a Gantt chart.
That looks beautiful. Is that
thank
something
you.
created? That's awesome. Yeah.
I remember when he did this, I had to make sure I went back and I had to do a lab so that I could create that and do it. I had to make sure I understood everything that was going on there. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
no, you can't drag and drop. If you could drag and drop, then I'd be blown away. Can you drag and drop the tasks? No. That's too much. Yeah, I don't know.
Make a Kanban board.
Then we'd have a real app, and you guys would just sell it and move on to be millionaires.
Actually, there is a percentage of our accelerator students who sign up to get me and Kurt's help in order to, they're not looking to get a power job. They want to sell their software.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's the way to go. I want to make some big money.
Yeah. But I'm all about the community. I love sharing. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. What are the differences between Sprocks and Functions? Now, we did talk about that. It's really fast. If we think of any other reasons why stored procedures are really cool, I'll add it here. And I do hear noises when people come on and off, so I just want to make sure if anybody showing their video, I'll bring them up. Why do you use stored procedures over views? Do you have an answer for that, Andrew?
It's definitely the speed, right? A view is going to be a little bit slower. So when I think of a view, it's more of like a picture of a SQL query, right?
Yeah.
It's more of like, it's a view. I don't know how to describe the word without using the word view. It's a view of a SQL query, where a Sprock will be much faster if you needed to do some kind of mathematical change or execute some kind of change in your code. I'm trying to say this in easier technical terms than,
I see it. I think the only thing you can do in a view is a select, right?
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Now you can do your where clauses in there, and there's something you can do to the view. I think they're called indexed views that make them a bit faster. So you have an index that's sort of built into that.
I would say that views are more secure, right?
Really?
Because a view would be more secure than a stored procedure.
By their nature. Yeah. Well, and a stored procedure is not really meant for it's not meant for viewing data. Views are meant for viewing data. Stored procedures is meant to change data.
That's the big thing, right? Stored procedure is for changing. A view is for viewing, and I believe it's read only after you've created the view.
Sure.
So you don't change the data once the view is there. That's the big difference.
You do have the control though to be able to just bring back data that could be viewed from your stored procedure, and then that keeps it safe too. So,
Sprocks can do everything a view can do. So Sprocks can return all kinds of different values. And there's a value called scalar, if I'm pronouncing it right. And scalar is that's a procedure that doesn't return any values, or it returns one. Can you clarify? Do you know either way on that, Andrew?
I'm going to leave that one for Kurt.
I don't know that for sure. I don't know how to answer that.
I'm not sure on that one either.
I've read about it. I've read about it, but I've never used it in this context, so I don't know.
Well, I've stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, and I still don't know. Wasn't that a part of their marketing? It's like, I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
In fact,
it looks like scalar refers to a single value or a value that cannot be divided further, as opposed to a more complex structure, like a table or an array. That's my definition I looked up. So
so it's an atom versus a molecule.
That sounds right. Yeah.
What's great about stored procedures, they can take parameters where views cannot. I mean, you could do a select from a view and then do even more where clauses and sorts and do all kinds of stuff there. But if you want to pass in a parameter and let's say a customer ID, and it's got 20 other tables that are associated, do all your joins and unions or whatever you want to do, your Sprock can actually return a lot of times like a tabular view or a table type of value as we know it in Power Apps.
I would say that's back to what Kurt said, right? A Sprock is for changing and a view is for viewing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, can we set some stuff up? Can we set up a database, a SQL server and all that? Are we going to try to do that today or?
So we do have videos on installing SQL. Now down here, and maybe we need to get on with it. We're already at an hour.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any hard stops today, Andrew?
No, I'm all here. How long do we want to go for? Are we talking 3 hours or what does that mean? Yeah.
At the 3 hour mark, my wife starts to get upset with me. So
probably the same for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got a hard stop at 12 o'clock Central. So
you got another 2 hours.
I'm Eastern. Okay, so okay.
You have to convert that for us, Kurt.
I think that's 1.
Come here, baby.
1 p.m. for us.
Yeah.
Or is it 1 hour off, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They're 1 hour behind. Sprocks can do everything a view can do, but can also do more imperative type of coding. You could have variables, you can have if statements, you could have loops. You can't do that type of stuff in views. So you think about it, it really opens things up. In you got your little.
Yeah, I'm going to try to bring his ratings up a little bit. This brings his live streams up a little bit, when you show the dog,
Yeah, my wife is a marketing specialist, and she said, does it pass the puppy or baby test? So you always get likes on, do you at least meet that baseline for marketing? So
yeah, people are commenting on that drag and drop. I have seen it. I believe it's it's Power Apps Framework. Someone designed something custom, and you can go out and go get their drag and drop. I have seen it, but I
think April Dunham. Did I get her last name right?
Yeah.
I think she did one, but it involved sliders. It was sort of slick from the parts that I watched there. I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool.
I say it's possible. It's not out of the box. It's going to take you a lot of work to do that. So yeah.
So Alan, a difference between SharePoints and views, and this may have been said, but I use stored procedures to do timed processes. Use SQL Server agent. Okay, yeah,
sounds right. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. Let's see here. So you know how we've got imperative and declarative type of stuff in Power Apps. I see the view as like declarative and Sprocks is. Your Sprocks could be like hundreds or thousands of lines. I don't know why you probably need to break that up if you get that big, but you could do that if you wanted to. Okay, so Michael said that it is Scott Turo who developed drag and drop feature.
I believe I went to one of his. I actually, that's where I saw it exactly at the Power Platform Community Conference. I went to his workshop, and that was one thing he showed us was Scott Turo's. If we're talking about the same Scott, now I'm thinking Scott, I think it's the same person.
I think ChatGPT actually referred to him too, didn't he? Didn't it? She.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I think I remember the word Scott, and I learned workshop, and I believe that was who I learned it from. Yeah.
Okay. Sprocks can take parameters. Well, that's huge. You could probably pass in. You know how we've got multiple items, and we can do a concat. We could pass pretty much an array, and I think there's a way to pass an arrays to Sprocks. I don't recall, but if it's just number of strings that are they're like it's like a CSV or something, you could pass in that string. You have the Sprock sort of parse it out and process a bunch of records at once. So in Power Apps, if you're going to do a for all on a gallery and update things, I try to use collections as much as possible to speed that up. But if you think about creating a store procedure that would take a bunch of items and do all the, let's say you've got a lot of tables that need to be touched. Let's say we have a customer and they haven't placed an order with us for 10 years. Okay, well, we want to archive all that stuff or at least delete it. We got backups and we'll go through and say, well, customers have addresses, customers have orders, customers have this and that, and companies have contacts. So if you're deleting something, there's all these relationships. And I know you can set up cascade updates and cascade deletes inherently in SQL Server,
Yeah.
but just think of maybe from a transactional. So you can have transactions in your store procedure. So if you're writing some banking type of software where you need to deduct an amount here and then add it over here, well, let's say it was deducted here and we never got to that second point. Well, SQL Server would be able to roll that back. And then at the end, where everything has happened successfully, you can say commit trans or commit transaction. So that's a big thing as well. Let me put that down here. Okay, so something else I wanted to say. I was on a project where I needed to find out the variance between a lot of records. And I didn't have a way to do that in PowerSet. And there was a lot of data. So I created a view that actually used that. There was another function in T-SQL called rank. And it ranked a data source. That was helpful in there. So there's all kinds of things within I actually have it right here. T-SQL has many more functions we don't have in PowerFX.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think anything math like that is great for using Sprocks.
Okay.
I think totally any kind of math that you want to do, you probably don't want to do that in Power Apps.
Okay.
Maybe you can, but not as fast as SQL. And that's where that variance comes in and everything too. Yeah.
Oh, Kurt. Tony says ChatGPT has nothing on Kurt. And someone in our accelerator student calls him Mr. Kurt, right? Oh, I can't hear you now.
Yeah, we lost you.
Mr. Larson, by the way.
Oh, Mr. Larson, that's right.
I still blush from it.
You can use transactions. And so you can, I'm going to put this as a sub point here. Think about creating a store procedure just for the sole reason of using a function in T-SQL that you don't have in Power Apps. It doesn't always have to read or write to a database there in SQL Server, So get at these.
Yeah, we can all use our collaborative power to train ChatGPT about Kurt.
Yeah.
We break it. ChatGPT is still spinning. It locks up every time it tries.
Oh, there's all kinds of talks I could talk about ChatGPT too, and the security behind it. I've been studying that extensively about, don't put company data in ChatGPT. Don't do it yet. And be careful putting your own name in ChatGPT, right? Because they're starting to get video. Imagine when they have your name, your picture, your image, and people can just type in your name and make a video about you doing something harmful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I just came across this AI. I've heard it being used, but you can train one of these AI services with your voice and then give it a big script and it'll just read it off, and you can tell it, hey, don't do any ums or, filler words, which is what I think would be really nice for that.
Yeah.
But I've heard of this horror story where somebody was, they weren't like a celebrity famous, but their voice was unique or something. Somebody went out and copyrighted. Is that right?
There's so many cases of this because I've been studying it, but I don't know how many of you know Drake, or like he is a very famous songwriter. They took his voice, made a song of his voice, and a lot of people say the song maybe even better than what he did, or it's equal.
Oh man!
And so they took his voice. You have Disney actors, voice actors that maybe are in legal battles about using their voice. There's
Morgan Freeman is used a lot.
You know, that's
Yeah.
that's a good point. You know, because what happens is I don't even know how to explain this. My mind is just exploding right now, guys. So so you've seen it so many times on our cell phones. You know, they'll say, "Hey, do you agree to this? Do you agree to that?" We don't even look at it. We just hit go on to the next thing, right? And we say that we want our privacy. We say we wanted these things, but we get rid of it so that we can have this convenience of this cool stuff with this data, right? I just recently was asked. Now I got some scary stories here. I was just asked to record my voice so that way we could train some AI stuff on some stuff, you know, on doing things. But now they got my voice. Maybe they could do other crazy stuff with it, right? And who knows where that goes? Because I've read a lot about the ChatGPT, and it's a great plagiarism machine, right? Because what it does is it basically goes out and grabs the net and for any content out there and develops this thing. So most of the content out there has been plagiarized at some level.
Yeah, right. Well, same thing from it. Pretend ChatGPT it was a child at 1 year. I know we're going off topic.
We are so bad.
Yeah, but pretend it was a child. It learns just like a human does.
Yep.
Slowly starts building and learning more logic and learning more until it's grown. And I don't. There's no stopping it. So that's why it's kind of scary. You know, all of us are going to be in there, especially Darren, Kurt, myself. Like our videos are on the internet.
Yeah.
Our names are on the internet. They have our images.
Yep.
And I don't know if you heard about the case where someone went to some business, and I can't remember the details, but they went to some business and they had like 8 avatars of real people who work for the business. And then they had a company give them millions of dollars, and they stole millions of dollars from all AI people in a meeting chat.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Check out that news story. That's scary, right? Like,
well, and there's another thing, just to put a period on this thing, because we got to get going. But they're saying that the development that we're doing Power Apps, we're teaching AI right now how to develop code, basically because it's all cloud computing and it's all of our code is being stored up there. And it's just we're basically training AI how to code right now. We're training the co-pilots. You know.
Yeah, and we can go into Copilot for Power Apps too. I love that. Only uses Dataverse though right now. Who knows what will happen in the future?
Yeah, I actually got a video on that in the personal pocket coaching where I talked about the Copilot with creating a database table. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty neat how fast it can just. Yeah.
No, nobody's going to do that. Joshua Farsdale says your content is on the internet in your voice. They're going to copy Kurt with a big old. Nobody's going to do that.
Rick says we're one day closer to Skynet.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. So I see the question about data flows in GCC Tenant.
Yeah.
I feel like data flows is there, but it doesn't work perfect. So I have seen data flows there. You can click on the button. You can create some. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Data flows. No, we're not talking about.
It's going to be like in Dataverse, almost kind of like how you move data from different places.
Okay. So that's completely different than Power Automate flows.
I would say it's more for large, big data. It's more for big data than Power Automate. Yeah.
Very good.
You can import and export data with data flows. Doesn't always work perfectly.
Okay. Very good. All right. So we've already covered that bullet point. Shall we create a new Azure database? Yeah, let's do that. And let me see. So, guys, if you have a Azure account, you can sign up for a free Azure account. They'll give you tons of credits to use. So you might really like this. So what I did was from my dashboard within Azure, and I'll give you guys the link to this. So you can create your account and everything. And Engineer Your Life says data flows has Power Query incorporated.
Yeah, it's like Power Query. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Right.
I think Data's King said the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to create a new database, and I'm going to go with my default subscription resource group, and I'm going to create a new database for the student number 1, and seems to be okay with that. And it's using Power Labs. Okay, I don't want to use an elastic pool because I can't do a development type of database. So I select no, and then I want it to be as cheap as possible. So I'll have it automatically shut off and all kinds of stuff. So usually it shows me the cost of things as I'm building out this. Okay, there's the cost right there. So I go with serverless or budget friendly, and then I'm going to go down here because right now it's not showing me a price.
Maybe because you haven't done anything that's going to make it charge you anything yet.
Yeah, I think I remember it. So maybe I missed something on that previous.
You might want to use the
screen.
breadcrumbs instead of the back arrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Create.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. So we got that, and we'll say student 1. Okay. And that server is fine. No elastic pool. We'll say development, and then configure database, because I don't need 32 gigs of memory. I can tell you that. And it's not. So maybe they changed this on us. So standard series Gen 5. So I'm gonna hit cancel and then hit cancel down here. Hopefully we'll get right back there. Okay.
Microsoft, that's one thing. Microsoft does change things a lot, and sometimes without telling us.
Yeah. It's very frustrating. Especially for somebody who teaches. It's like, oh yeah, just go in here and here, and then it's not working on the screen.
And the next day it's different. They move the button to the left side, or yeah.
So so this is sort of cool. If the database isn't being used for an hour, shut it down. Max database size. Being a trainer, I could be fine with just 1 gigabyte. Just for samples and whatever. If you're not storing files in the database, a gig will go for a while if you're just storing, text or numbers and simple types. I'm going to hit apply and see if we can start getting to the cost here. And I'm going to hit next on networking. Allow Azure services and resources to access server. And I would click yes. It's not allowing me to. It will, I believe, allow me to once I create it. Add current IP address. Yes, because I want to bring up my SQL Server Management Studio, the client, to talk to databases as a developer. And so I want to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to connect to it outside.
Darren, real quick, could that be the reason why I can't connect with my laptop to the to this very database? I've got it hooked up to my main computer, but I can't connect to it with my laptop. Is it because I didn't use that IP?
Yeah.
IP?
Yeah. No, it would be the same IP address actually. Okay. So everybody in your home and and even organizations, a lot of times, there'll just be one IP address, unless I'm not thinking of something for organizations. But typically for homes, it would just be your external IP address. Now, if you were to see what your IP address is within the network, let me say CMD, and I'm trying to think what the command is to find. It's like IP config.
Sounds right. That's the most useful one. Yep.
Yeah. So
I didn't know if it was using the card that was the adapter that was on my machine or as part of the IP or not. Okay.
I love it. The beast.
Yeah. Well, I created this thing. I'm like, I'm never going to need a computer for 5 years. It's got 64 gigs of memory. It's got 12 cores, and it's got a really good graphics card. I'm like, this is the beast, can handle anything. And
well, very similar. Very similar. I think I'm up there too. Yeah.
But the thing is, it's slow. It's slower than my old computer that was like 3 or 4 years old. Yeah. And I need to reformat it. And I've always been blaming Windows 11. Do you have Windows 11?
I have not upgraded to Windows 11.
I think that's it. When I'm in a file, like I want to open, let's say a TXT file in a different something, I'll right click on it. When I right click on a file in Windows Explorer, it takes like 30 seconds.
I can't handle slow. Can't do it. Yeah.
Like right now, if I haven't rebooted in the last 4 to 6 hours, like right now, if I start typing in some, especially in browsers, I start typing something, there's like a second delay or two, and it's just like in some cases.
You're hurting me, Darren. You're hurting me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very painful. Like even the task manager, look how slow this is coming up, and this it's supposed to be a beast.
So CPU is 70%. GPU is okay. Yeah.
Of course, I'm using a lot of internet because I'm streaming and not using anything close to my full capacity.
So it looks like the CPU is your bottleneck right now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of going down. But yeah, I think the CPU is it.
Well, think about what you're doing. You got video going. You got, your cameras and stuff. You're doing a lot. You got like 14 screens going. You probably have 100 tabs open.
This WMI provider host is what eats up all my processing power, it feels like. And it doesn't do it initially. And I don't need to be running Postgres on my computer.
That's what does for me too, is that WMI provider host. What does that do? Does anybody know?
It's a good question.
It's like a service within Windows. I actually taught a class on this.
Is that Windows 11? Like mine is not showing that.
It's Windows Management Interface or something. Is what WMI stands for. But yeah, it's a Windows service or process that's used for a lot of things. So you can never like pinpoint it. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that could probably help me debug that, which I would love. But if you ever want to find out your information, say IP config all, and I use AT&T fiber, and but you can get at your internal IP address will be 192.168. And if you try to add that as an endpoint within the Azure SQL, it's going to be like, no, that's my network, or a subnet that's within their, their data, what do you call that when you got a huge warehouse of servers?
Data lake, data forest, cluster.
Server
Data center.
Data center. Oh yeah,
data center. Maybe that's what I was trying to think of. But so Kurt will have to troubleshoot your issue with that. That maybe it's a firewall because Windows has a firewall ever since XP. If I'm not mistaken, that's when they did that. So anyway,
I'm probably just doing something stupid.
And a lot of times I'll stick with all these defaults, and maybe I shouldn't, but yeah, I don't want a free trial of stuff because it'll.
Rick says, try unplugging and plugging it back in.
Yeah.
No, this isn't an Apple. This is.
Rick is an Apple user. Rick, you want to defend yourself at all?
This isn't a Macintosh here. This is it's a real computer, man.
My maintenance window.
I see Rick and I are in the same place. Wonderful.
It just works. That's all I can say.
It just works. Personally, you like to ride yours, right?
That's right.
So Andrew and Rick, you're staying at the same hotel?
Yep. Same level, same spot. Yeah. Nice view of the pool here.
It's pretty nice. We got a group rate on our rooms.
Nice.
Josh says things would go much. I think he's meant to say go much smoother. Yeah. Things would go much smoother. People would just larcen to me. I try to tell them. I just try to tell people, you'd be a lot better off. You just larcen to me,
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw these screens I was going through a lot of times. Now, why aren't they showing the estimated?
Did you see that right there? This is new to Edge. Highlight that again and right click.
Okay.
You see the Copilot?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Literally, and I don't want to share this. I guess I will, but literally, you could do this on any website. Any website you go to, you can Copilot.
Wow.
Highlight, right click, Copilot.
Cool. I like it.
It's and it gives you resources, learn more, and then it's amazing.
Right. Very cool. It's not showing me the estimated cost. Maybe it's not going to charge me anything.
And I think Thomas was asking how long do these trials last?
Mhm.
I'm going to say 30 days, but sometimes some trials are 90 days. I don't know the exact.
Yeah. So Thomas, if you're talking about the like Windows Defender or there was like an option for that. Yeah, very well maybe 30 days. Now, when you create a new Azure account, they'll offer you a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things for free for 12 months. And like a drug dealer, your first one's free, your first year is free, and then when that 13th month is coming up, you'll be like, whoa, turn it down.
Yeah, gotta be careful.
$13 million a month after that, Yeah.
So guys, I'm going to click the create button. Okay. And especially since I have the auto close of the database isn't being touched for an hour, we'll shut it down. So even if they were going to charge me for this dev database, it'd probably just be pennies. When I set the space for a dev database down to like 1 or 2 gigs, I think it gets down to like 15 cents a month. So with that auto shutdown, I think it would be fractions of a penny maybe. But so deployment is in progress.
How long do you think this takes?
Maybe 30 seconds.
Wow, that's so quick.
And it should actually tell us as soon as it's done. Yeah, Microsoft Defender for cloud. Yeah, it usually doesn't take too long. So I'm going to bring up my notes here, and I'm going to move it to the side so we can still see what it's doing there. So we're creating a new Azure SQL Server database. Now, what I would recommend is that you download SQL Server Management Studio. A lot of times you'll hear it shortened to SSMS. Oh, you see, it's the deployment's complete. So how long was that? Maybe like
Too
45
fast.
seconds.
Too fast. That's what it is. Yeah.
So I'm going to go in here and get you guys the link for this. And if you don't know what that is, it's something like that.
Yeah, one of my first jobs was to go to companies and set up SharePoint with a SQL backend, and you set up the server farm. Oh, it took forever.
Yeah.
It was like an all-day thing. And then we set up a SQL now in 30 seconds. Yeah. Yeah.
SQL Now. What is that?
Oh, I'm saying we set up SQL now. Like
Oh,
you
these
just did.
days, yeah.
Yeah. Like how
Well,
fast you just set up Azure SQL. It's just, it's refreshing. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And guys, I sort of want to show you because a lot of you on here are accelerator students. So I'm going to share with you guys some resources. If you go over in the classroom here, we've got, and for those of you that are going to attend the workshop, I'll send out the links to some of these videos. And admin and governance, we have talking about creating a domain name, setting up your tenant, a new tenant, or like it sort of get around and show you what a brand new tenant looks like and the different things, settings you can, setting up a new Azure account. I did all that to get down here to create a new Azure DB. And then we connect to it and so on and so forth. And I believe what we have, I need to go look for it real quick, is within the accelerator program, the main course that I have there at school. If you go into the SQL Server portion of that, we've got links on installing. So Kurt actually installed SQL Server locally, and it was sort of like what Andrew was just describing. Kurt, I think that was a 2-hour video because we're explaining everything through the steps, but it took like maybe 10 or 20 minutes to install it, right?
I mean, look at what we've been doing today. It takes for, when you're talking about stuff, right?
That's true.
But I'm not poo-pooing that, though. I think it's really good, the material we've been talking about today. A lot of good information here.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, my first Power App ever was SQL on-prem. So yes, you can. There's more hoops and bounds you got to go through. You have to set up a gateway to connect your data, but it is possible to do SQL on-prem as a data source in Power Apps or Power Automate or Power Platform.
I think I've asked Darren this, and I think, Darren, forgive me. But would it be better for me, or is there any gain by me having my SQL sitting on my hard drive here locally, and apart from
security is more secure than in the cloud? But that's also an assumption. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Okay. Well, because I've got to go out, right? I've got to leave my local to go out there and then come back, right?
Yeah. And also, you own the data, although Microsoft says you own your own data, but it's more of a comfort thing. Like, imagine you work for the government like I do, and it's some kind of confidential data that cannot be leaked 100%, or you're going to destroy your entire state, very confidential. Then that's why we do on-prem.
Okay.
Not to leak social security numbers, what they call it PII, personal identifier information.
Yeah.
So you do not want that leaked.
No, I'm just now that you brought that up, because that's a good point. So if I got to leave my hard drive and go up to the cloud and then come back to my hard drive, is my data going with it every time I do a select statement?
It's going through the gateway is opening up your on-premise server. Now you can lock things down, more, but yeah, if you're going over it now, it's encrypted too.
Yeah.
Your Power Apps that's out in the Microsoft Cloud servers is talking to this data gateway that you've registered. Now, the data gateway is a program that is installed on the on-premise SQL server and sort of opens things up. And I was working with a DBA at one of my larger clients, and he was like, "Whoa, you've got a record set out there. It's been open for hours," and it was a Power Apps application. I'm like, and he goes, I'll give it more memory. And I'm like, okay, cool. I was sharing that data gateway with a bunch of Power BI guys and stuff too. So there's all kinds of, settings that you can set up here. But I always thought it would be a huge performance hit going through a data gateway. I mean, so many stops to get to the data, but it wasn't so bad. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Yeah.
I'm not a DB guy. I have a whole database team to rely on, so it's kind of helpful. Once again, we can't know it all, so it's nice to have a DB guy to say, hey, this is not secure. This is how your storage procedures should be. Things like that. They can give you good advice.
See, and I feel misled because I thought you and Darren knew it all. So okay.
Not at all. I don't want to be like that. Yeah, not at all. We're still learning. This is a brand new functionality we're doing today. So we're learning it.
Yeah, absolutely, we are.
I earned my MCDBA, Microsoft Certified Database Administrator, with SQL Server. So I had to learn all kinds of stuff I wasn't used to, but that was years ago though. So even you think a MCDBA could probably answer any typical question for SQL Server, but things have changed over the years. I'm sure they've added new features and things. So, so it's just still hard. You have to keep up on all these things if you're going to attempt to know it all. But look at doctors and surgeons, and, you got all kinds of different areas of medicine. So what was I doing? I was going here and talking about getting SQL Server Management Studio. So this is what it is. So I can connect to a database And I believe I have a test one here. Power Lab sample data. So let's see what we got here. And these are all the servers I've registered that I can connect to. I typically always have that available. And so we've got LT. There's a new sample. It's not Northwind. It's not Biblio that Kurt, you and I had for sample databases back in 97, 98. What is that? It's like an AdventureWorks. I don't know if
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
I don't remember, but that's been I slept since then. I don't remember.
So what I did was I right-clicked on one of these database tables and said, hey, select the first 1,000 rows. And so there's the select statement, the top 1,000. And if you look down here, guys, look at these numbers. You see where it says 847 rows? To the left of that is hours, minutes, seconds. It was less than a second to execute this. So there's probably more time taken just to render everything within this little grid that we have here. Yeah. So SQL Server Management Studios, SSMS allows you to run queries like this, ad hoc queries. You can look at the database objects. You can look and build your Sprocks, your views. You can do so much within this. And this is pretty much the tool that DBAs use and also the agents to sort of manage these SQL servers and the databases and such. Okay, I'm going to go back here, connecting to a SQL server. All right, well, I've got a new database. I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to go back to my student one database. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up here to be able to copy and paste things more easily. Okay, and it is this server. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the databases and hit refresh. There we go. There's my student one. And there used to be an option when you create an Azure SQL database to actually use sample data, which is how I created this data that I pulled up. I didn't see that option when we were in there a few moments ago. So I don't know if they took that out or I just wasn't watching.
Since you're here too, Darren, is there an option for us to be able to change passwords within that in this management system, or do I have to do that at the Azure level?
Yeah, so something I need to put out there to lay the foundation. So SQL Server, you essentially have two ways to authenticate. You can use your Active Directory login, okay, and then you've got SQL Server authentication. Okay, so allow me to go in here, and I right click on this, and I say New Server Registration. Now, a lot of times when you open up SSMS, you can have a login screen that should be exactly the same, I believe. Let's see what comes up here. Now, SQL Server Management Studio is not the fastest. So any waiting you're probably doing is probably just on this interface, unless you got millions of rows and you don't have indexes on your table and you did a huge query, then that would make sense. But it's wanting the server name here. Okay. Now, it's got Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication. So I do have a script that I use to add users to my Azure databases. But the first thing I'm going to need, if you look at this, is the server name. Okay. So I hover over this. Oh, I got a little icon, copy to clipboard. That is great. Expand that. I'm going to just paste that in there. Okay. Now, I've never used Windows authentication for an Azure database. I actually prefer
SQL.
I always prefer the SQL server because I want one particular app to have a separate login and
Exactly.
maybe lock it down to exactly only what it needs. You know,
I hope people are paying attention to this. People pay big money for this, folks.
Yeah.
This is good stuff right here, man.
Security is huge. Security is huge, right? We could show
Right.
you how to make
It is.
everything, but if it's not secure, what good is your data?
Say
Yeah.
that one more time, Darren, what you just said, man. Talk about SQL Server authentication.
Yeah, I always prefer doing SQL Server authentication and not Windows. A corporation might give me full access to all kinds of stuff. Well, you don't want your app to be running under my credentials, you know.
Right.
But there are some organizations, they'll create a service account for an application.
Correct.
And then the upside to using the Windows authentication is that you don't have to, I know in .NET programming with ASP.NET, I'd have, you know, my web.config or, you know, I've got the password sitting right there.
Yeah.
And the sysadmins were like, no, you need to use network authentication because I can get this from stop popping around here. And what you would do is you would configure that application pool with an IIS, which is Microsoft's web server, to actually use a service account. You can set up that password at the server level or the service level, and you know, you don't have passwords sitting out in plain text.
Exactly.
You know, so that's a sort of a good thing. So you could set that up, but I prefer the SQL Server authentication. Anything that's managed by IT, and you got to troubleshoot something or test something out, you know, you got to put in a ticket, which is nobody wants to fill out a ticket, but I understand why you got to do tickets. I've been a network admin for, I think it was about 1.5 years. I'm like, I don't like this. I like to build apps.
Yeah.
And people stop me in the hallways. I'm like, do you have a ticket? Well, no. I'm like, well, I've got like a dozen people who have filled out the tickets and I'm working on all theirs. So do you think it's fair that I listen to you and go off and fix something for you while those other people are waiting? So I definitely understand, you know, tickets to have some order within the IT department. But I guess there's some other things out here. Azure Active Directory, you got integrated, one with the password, one with the multi-factor authentication. I'm going to pick SQL Server Authentication. So at this point, you need to provide a login. Okay. And you could put a description here. You could say, hey, this is my test database or whatever. You don't have to use the fully qualified server name there. And what I really like about this is you can test the connection. Now, I don't have, well, this is for one of my accelerator students. If I hit test, it will probably come back. Well, he doesn't have access to the master database, so that makes sense. If you go over to this tab at the top, let me try to make the screen a little bigger for you guys. Go over to connection properties. You can say, hey, I need this particular login. Let's see, browsing the available database requires connecting to the server. It may take a few moments. Would you like to continue? Yes. But he doesn't, that particular login doesn't. But we could say, hey, we want this user to connect to just one specific database if we want. So there's a few settings that you can make here. So I at least wanted to show you guys this. Now, Kurt, did you ask me a question and I went down, hey, there's 2 different types of authentication.
Yeah, I wanted to find out. I was asking if I could change my password once it's established within SQL Server or with this Management Studio, or do I have to have it? Does it got to be done at the Azure level?
So yeah, if you picked SQL Server authentication, there's a little window that you guys might want to know about here. Okay, so if you click on View, and I'll zoom in, there's something called a Template Explorer, and you can get to it by hitting Control-Alt-T for template. Okay, if you're a new person to SQL Server, it's definitely going to be your friend here. So I'm going to open this up, and I can pin it. Oh, look at this! Create a data reader user. Okay, create a schema user. Create, at least for a dev server, I'll say as DBO, which means they have full access to that database. So if I open that up, we can see the T-SQL code that could do this. Okay, so if I wanted to use, it's looking for a database name. So if you look up here at the top, okay, Power Lab sample data, I can click on this and it should be showing me all these databases. So maybe that's a little weird. There we go. Jeez. So SQL Server Management Studio, you always got to make sure it's refreshed. It's not every few seconds going out there, but I guess I triggered it somehow. But this use statement will programmatically select what database that you want to use. So I want to use the student 01. Okay. Eventually. But right now we want to use master. Okay. So what's nice about having this little tree view over here is you can just drag objects and it will type it up for you. And a lot of times it puts this in these square brackets. I don't really like, but if you have like spaces or some weird character in there, it's allowed, but you always got to use these square brackets. You know how if you got a space in your SharePoint list name,
Yep.
over in Power Apps, you got to have those little apostrophes around it, right?
Yeah. Be careful with spaces in SharePoint. Just be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. So here I will, and we're already in master, so it really doesn't matter. So if I execute that, you'll see this little window that comes up and says how long it took and if it was successful or not. So you want to create there's two different levels where Power Apps creates the user. You create at the server level, and that's not only for Azure, but also, I'm sorry, it's not only for SQL Server authentication, but also for AD. So this dot here, if you want to get at your local database, so if you install, what's cool about it is you can download the fully featured SQL Server, no restrictions. You download the developer edition. You can install it locally and do all kinds of stuff with your local data. That's best for learning. So if I wanted to add a new user, I would, if you wanted to use these, the GUI that's provided for you, you can use it on an on-premise or a local server here. Go into security, and we got all these logins. So I got all these service level accounts. I have SA, and I've got the beast / Darren. So if I want Kurt, I'm going to add a new login for you. I would just right click, and this is the easiest way of creating logins. Like if you've got full access to the server, there's all kinds of options that we can do. And so if I wanted, like, let's say Kurt, you've got a login, on my network, on the domain controller. If we were an organization, you'd have those things set up. But if you had an account, I don't have AD installed here in my home. So what I would do is search for is a Kurt Larson on this computer. Okay. And I would pull them in. And then at that point, you're going to tell SQL Server, okay, this guy out on the network or a local needs to have this access. And you can tell it what, if I go down here to server roles, I can make them a sysadmin, which is the top level user over that server. So be careful with that. You might want, if you're able to, like a local install, make yourself a sysadmin, sure. But if they only need to read, I would say, I'm thinking at the database. So there's server level roles that you can assign, and then you've got database level roles. So I was looking for DB reader and DB writer. That's more at the database level. Then you can go down here to user mapping, and you can say, okay, well, I want Kurt to have access to these two databases. And I click on the database. I'm like, no, I just want to allow him to read and write. So there's the DB reader and the DB writer. Okay. If I make him a DB owner, he's going to have full access to that database. And so these are the different databases. So you could have tons of access over here on one database and no access over there on another database.
Okay.
So it's very granular. And guys, it's really important that you pay attention and not think, oh, well, I don't manage a local server. No, this is really cool. Okay. And it's really cool because if you use these pop-up windows, as soon as you're done, you can go up here to the top and say script. It's going to create a script. Now, a lot of things, if I go over here to my Azure server, okay, and I go into a database, let's say the student one. Well, first of all, okay, there's the security. I got logins. Okay. I could right click on this and say new login. It's not going to allow you to use a GUI.
Yeah.
It's going to make you use a script. Well, if you want to use the GUI to sort of help you out, I'm going to go back in here. Yeah, Josh says SQL has always had all this functionality. It's my fave. Yeah, mine too. And as you move to Azure, there's some things that you can't do. I mean, over here in the local, I can right click on a database and say, hey, script or back it up. Let me say all tasks.
Now, real quick, before you get too far away. So earlier you were doing role assignment, and you had DB reader, DB writer, and then you had DB owner. Now, if you had clicked, does that DB owner over what's the word I'm looking for? Does it rule over the DB reader and DB writer? In other words, if I have DB owner, I don't need to even check DB those other two, right? Because it's going to automatically assign those two. Is that okay?
Yeah. I think why I would select DB writer and reader and DBOs, if I were going to give you temporarily full access, I'd check off the ones I want you have in the future, and then I give you DBO. And then once you deploy it, maybe I could take away that DBO and just give you read and write. Maybe you had a login for an app and you're sort of in development, Josh says the owner can do almost anything in the database. Yeah, as what I understand, it has full access over that database. And typically I get that from network admins or DBAs if it's one of my dev databases.
And if you could back up just one more time, I know this has been a while. How did you get to the registered servers where you see all those registered servers up there in the first box at the top?
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is go up to view and say registered servers.
Okay, there it is.
And that's something that took me a while. I'm like, what's this registered server? I open it up. That's got all my connections saved. And whenever I open up SSMS, it's like, hey, you need to log in. Well, if you double click on one of these servers, it's going to bring it down here in the Object Explorer and automatically connect to it because maybe you ticked off save password, and you don't have to do that every time. That's what I really like.
Yeah.
So this is my local SQL Server engine running on my computer over here. And let's go in here and actually, I'm going to show you something really cool. And I'm going to create a new login.
So it's really important, right, in SQL to have least level permissions. As you're teaching this, that's a big security principle, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just give everybody full ownership to things.
No.
Least level security permissions if you're the DBA. Obviously, I'm not, but I've been told, no, I'm only going to give you access to this table. And I think you named that before. So I think that's a huge principle to touch on.
But something I like to do. So if I'm writing a Power App and I'm writing this thing, maybe I'm looking at SAS. I'm trying to do some software as a service somewhere down the road. And so while I'm developing this thing, I want to be the owner of that, man. I want to do that. Now later on after it gets released and stuff, maybe I don't need to be the owner of that particular deal. But when you're writing the code, you want to have access to everything because you need it.
I agree. Like, I'm the developer, right? I want access to everything, but I've been told by my DBAs before, no. I mean, it happens, right? So I'm not the DBA, so I appreciate their advice, and a lot of times rely on them to give me the best advice. But I always want full access, right? Especially as a developer. I don't want to have to put in a ticket, as Darren
right.
said.
And in this case, you're working for a place, an agency that you don't want nothing to do with that, because once you become an owner, now you got a lot of responsibility, a lot of liability.
That's another great point, right? Yeah, I don't want all that because I don't want to be blamed when something goes wrong. And actually, like if you talk to CEOs or CIOs, they're like, no, don't give me permission. I might break that. Just give me like read only. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
The whole object of everybody's game, I don't care what you're in.
Yeah.
Don't let your uniform get dirty. That's the whole main thing, man.
Yeah.
Don't let your uniform get dirty.
We had a saying at a place I worked back in 2009, and it's like, can you do your job? Yeah, I can. And we're in IT or it's software or whatever. You can do your job. Yeah. We're not secure enough. We got to make it to where you feel like you can't do anything. That's when you know that you're secure.
Yeah, you can still do your job. Okay, we're not secure yet. We got to keep going. Yeah.
So the great benefit to using this GUI, especially here locally, is I can script the action to a new query window, or you can save it to a file or put it on a clipboard or whatever. And I'm going to say new query window. So you notice I didn't hit OK. Now I can just hit cancel and look at this.
Yeah.
So we're using master and we create a login called Kurtaroo, and your password is Kurt. That's not a good password. I don't know why you picked that password.
Password @1. There you go.
Password @1.
A proper password should have a symbol and some
there you go.
numbers.
That's the most common one right there.
But then I won't remember it. Yeah. Okay. No. That's
just tell Chrome what your password is. They'll keep track of it for you. So, Kurt, you were born in 1860.
Yeah, I was there when Abe Lincoln was shot. Yeah. No. Yeah. Sure.
So sometimes with my T-SQL, I'll like break down these things a little.
Which is a good point. Do the same thing in Power Apps, right? I do the same thing in Power Apps. Even though you can auto, what's it called? Like help it fix your scripts. I still do it myself so I can read it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because I come back from the dark ages of programming. Actually, I mean, I'm serious, dark ages. And I can't write. I can't look at it. I cannot look at it if it's been structured out at all. Where it's separated, the lines are separate. I got to have everything all in one line because I'm just so used to. I've written so much code like that. My eyes is just too much to look at.
Well, you're a little special, Kurt. Do you happen to know assembler?
I do. Oh, I did. I spent a lot of time.
That explains it right there.
Right. So where I come from, if you have a carriage return, a char 13. And sometimes it's a char 10 or char 13. Well, that's 2 bytes of memory. If you've only got 32,000 bytes of memory in your entire system, you got to be really, really careful when you're doing that. You eat up memory really fast. So I'm just used to that kind of a platform. So now that we've got all this loose stuff and I got to read a whole page, it's like I got to paginate just to get through one block of code. It's too much.
Yeah, that goes into more. I have a question for you, Kurt. Do you want your data or Darren, do you want your data table wide or tall?
No wide. Wide's bad.
Right.
Wide is bad. Wide is terrible. Yeah.
I feel like that's a good point. Even if you're just beginning at this, right? You want your data tables tall instead of tons and tons of columns wide.
Yes. Right. Because if you're wide, now you're talking about, as you're going wide, you're talking about fields that you're storing.
Yeah.
And now what happens if you got to add a field somewhere down the road? Well, you can't just do that pragmatically in some platforms like Power Apps, but you can add a record all day long,
Exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
You're not going to be normalized. Sorry.
Whenever I see a student, so I had a question just this week. Somebody that works at a huge car dealership, and she was like, "Hey, I need to store these photos for, so we have a car record and we need to have at least like up to 10. So a lot of times students, when they're new to data, and they'll create a column called photo 1, photo 2, photo 3.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's so rough. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you have to do it though, and I hate that. Yeah.
Well, if you're dealing with charts, or any kind of reports, you have to do that sometimes. And that's why I think joins are really good, because you can keep it normalized in your persistent data. But then if you need it for a report, go ahead and do a join and you unnormalize it so you can have all of your fields across the thing if you need to,
There you go. Yeah.
But if you've got many fields going across, then there's probably some relationships that needs to be broke into. You probably got something where you need to break that into another table somewhere.
Yeah, I think going through all these simple steps that maybe people don't talk about much, it's really valuable. I really think that this is super valuable stream that we're talking right now. We're talking more than just creating. It's best practices. So it's great.
Yeah. And I'm picky on that stuff too. Like I love it when we get accelerator students come in, they say, hey, I got this new project. I'm trying to develop the ERD. I'm trying to develop the data. It's like, let me see that before you start developing. I want to go and pick at this thing, man.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is the ERD diagram that I created for her. So there's a car, and then we got car photos over here. So if you got repeating columns, or you're tempted to create multiple columns, well, that would be the many side, a one-to-many relationship. And then you can, as you can see here, car photos. Well, it's a SharePoint. At least I think she started with a SharePoint. Now she's going to Dataverse. But we're going to have ID title. Of course, SharePoint always creates the title, and I typically leave it as that. But we got car ID, notes, and the owner ID. So it's very, very narrow. So I just wanted to give a visual of that, of what we're just talking about there. All right, so going back to our script, this is a script that will ultimately create the user, and you see we're using master here. Well, they have to be created at the master level. That is the server's main database. It's a system database. You'll find all the database objects and things like users and global type of server-wide setting or instance-wide settings in the master database. So we have to say use master go. Whenever we see it go, it's going to go execute it and come back. And then we'll create a login. So create login. There's the name I want to use. There's the password I want to use. What's that?
Curtaroo. I love it.
Good. So quickly, Darren, I know this, but there's probably some people that don't. When you hit go, you got lots of goes in there. So the whole reason for that is so that those are stopping points, right? That it's going to go to the next go. Is that correct?
Yeah. It goes off and executes it.
Another good point, right, is you can highlight just section of it and execute only the highlighted section, right?
Is that?
I know that's basics, but it's good to point that out.
That is so well, yeah, I didn't know that. So thank you.
Love that.
So I could have two goes going on there highlighted. It's kind of like steps and debuggies. So you do that by F5, right?
Yeah. So there's an execute button up here, but F5 will do it as well. I get a little scared to hit F5 because if I'm working on a browser, that could really be a catastrophe, right? If you're in a Power Apps app, you haven't saved it the first time, you've been in there working an hour, I'll run it, F5, boom. But somehow the browser caught that F5, and then I'm like,
that's awful. It's funny. I've worked on so many different database platforms. I've never been able to work with SQL Server. This is my first real attempt at it. So
okay,
isn't that crazy? Oracle, Sybase, all that. Never SQL Server. So.
I need to give you a Denver project. my Denver project was my first really big application. The client was in Denver, and that's what I called it. And they use SQL Server. And so anyway.
Yeah, I'm excited about
it. I need to give you one of those, Kurt. Okay, so we're at the master level. We create the login at the server or server instance. And when I say instance, do you see that it's got the dot there? I could have said the beast, and that would be better named than just dot. But on this computer, I could install SQL Server over and over and over again, and I could have 10 instances of SQL Server engine running.
Okay, yeah.
So when we go to master, we're just creating one. Now, what you could do if you had several instances or even other servers on the network, you could map or what's it called, like joining a different server instance.
Mhm.
So
it's
that
connect.
is possible.
You would just connect to it.
Yeah, there's actually a place that you create that at, and it might be in security.
But it's basically just a connection string that you're creating, right? And then like a context.
Yeah, so linked servers.
Okay.
So what I could do is I could say something like dot. Well, let's say this instance was called, what's the default instance? So I could say maybe the beast dash beast dot. Of course, I'll probably have to put brackets around this. There we go. The beast dot database name, and it's master. But you can also put, so that's the server, but you could also have a / instance name. Yeah. So we did that a lot of times on database servers with some of the organizations I worked with, where they'd have a separate they'd have a separate instance for SharePoint. You want to keep all that separate. What were you saying, Andrew?
That's normally the way I see it, with the / and then you see the instance. That's normally how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
well,
it's cool.
I'm sorry. I don't understand the /. What were you doing? What were you getting at with that? The difference.
So you can have more than one SQL Server engine, an instance of, running on the same server.
Right.
So, for example, if I were to go to services within my control panel, go into all the services that are running, and you'll see SQL Server engine. Right. But if you created a separate instance of a SQL Server install, you'll see another service with that instance name in there as well.
I think it's a security thing. Like I said, I'm not a DBA, but I think it's a security thing. Okay, this department gets this SQL Server instance, and this department gets this SQL Server instance. You kind of keep your data separated.
Yeah.
That's my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is, like, let's say we're working in here and we're trying to do a join between two tables, but they're not only in different databases, they're in separate servers or separate instances. And if they're linked, you can say server and instance dot database dot DBO, which is what's called a schema. You can have several schemas within a database. Dot database object name. Let's say a table or a view, and then you can join or union something on a completely different server that's in the network that was linked.
Okay, very cool. Now, one last question. I know that you probably already talked about it, but I missed it maybe. The master that's in every instance, right? Every instance has a master.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah. In fact, if you go in any server, you should see. Now you won't see it in Azure SQL, but you see here we have on system databases. Pay attention to what I'm pointing at here, though.
I am. I see exactly where you're pointing. Yeah.
you got because okay. What's the thing within Zoom It that allows me to, like, mark it up? Do you remember?
Control 2.
Control 2. Okay. Control 3. Nothing. So it's like zoomed in and I can't do anything. But so you got master, you got model. So whenever you create a new database, within every single database that's created, you want to have 3 tables or certain logins already set up. We put it all in model, and when you create a new database, it will make a copy of whatever's in model. It's sort of a cool thing.
Nice. Very, very nice.
MSDB is used for SQL Server agent. Database administrators or network admins will use the SQL Server agent in order to kick off processes, let's say backups and stores, or you want to do update statistics on indexes and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what that database is for. Then we have a temp DB, and you can create temporary tables. Am I right, Andrew, in thinking that if in the syntax within T-SQL, if I said, I think it's like a hashtag with a table name, it creates a temporary table, but it's in this temp DB.
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. Josh says you would really like SQL, Kurt. It's basically text scripts. Yeah, it's funny. I was there when SQL was invented.
I'm not sure when that was, Kurt, but
yeah. You're older than dirt.
I think it was like in 1974. Yeah, I worked with so many different SQL flavors. It's just amazing. But it's funny because it was created because it needed to be, because it was only text. We used to have these baud modems that were like 300 or less. I could actually out type them, and so that's all you could do is get text across the phone lines. That's how it was there. But the funny thing is, it's still alive and still around because it works so perfectly, right?
Yeah.
But now the thing is, though, is like for SQL Server, though, I've never been able to work with the server. This, because you got Sybase and Oracle, and they're all servers within their own rights. But SQL Server is a little bit different than this isn't just SQL. This is actually the server operations working here. And that's what's so really cool about this. I've never had an opportunity to work with this,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when I worked with SQL, it mostly was SSIS. So that's even different. That's the movement of data to different places. I guess maybe even like data flows, like we were talking about before. But that's mostly where I've worked, is in SSIS. We'll make reports for reporting. That's kind of where I went in.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to be at the master level. We're going to create the login at the server level. Then we're going to go into the database where we want to give that user access to. And then we'll say, create user there. Well, we have create login and create user. So keep that in mind. Now, if you use the GUI here, you don't have to remember that. Now, remember I was talking about templates? You say view, Control-Alt-T. Now, what I could have done is go over to templates and, look, I can create a new user. You can double click and it's going to bring up a template. But I like this better because I can use the GUI to actually type in things, and it's just going to put it all where it needs to go. So we're going to move over to that database, create him, same name, for login, Kurtaroo. So we got to put his username in there twice. Okay. And then we use again, which I don't know why we've got to use again. That should be the database we're already in. But then we need to alter the role in order to give him access as a DB owner. So if we had the DB reader, DB writer, perhaps we could have that separated by commas there. So do you guys have any questions, comments about what we're doing here? And by the way, Josh, I do have you on. If I see all these things in the comments, just want to give you a chance to talk as well.
To get in the show.
What's that?
To get in the show.
Yeah, if you know all about SQL more than us, feel free to join and let us share your knowledge. That's what the community is about, right?
That's right.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think what I might do, I'm gonna showcase what we did, or what we were talking about before, was we can just select the first 1 or 2 lines of code here and hit execute. Oh, it completed successfully. Everything's good. Well, that's great. We can, since this is our first time doing this all together, we'll just take it one step at a time here. So I'll execute that. We're looking good. And then we'll execute these 2 things. Oh, it's all successful. Okay. Now, if I try to execute the whole thing now,
It already exists. Yeah.
Yeah. Already exists. So this is what an error looks like. Now, what I do like about this is you can double click on this and it should take you to exactly the statement where the error is at.
Yeah. Really good advice. I love the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. For those of you that are going to be joining the workshop, this is the type of stuff that you need to, if you want to get it at the half off, you're going to need to make sure you're all set up on your server and everything. So this is good that we're going over all this. And okay, so that's how we create a user. Now I'm going to copy all this and I'll make this sort of like my template. Control A, Control C, because we don't have those GUI windows. Graphical user interface is what GUI. Now they call it UI UX, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to say new query. Okay. So this is all within our server within Azure. I'm going to create a Kururu. And what database am I going to give them? I'm going to give them this student one database. So I'm going to, this is also something that's cool is I can drag anything from the Object Explorer, like a database name, and just pull this over. Oh, okay. And I can still move it around.
Once again, very similar to Power Apps. Very similar, right? You can actually drag right on over. Yeah.
So you can drag, let's say we got a text input or a label. You could do that from the tree view. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can go to the tree view, drag it over. You want to try it out?
Yeah, I would. It is still hung up on trying to find my except my OneDrive. That's funny.
Oh yeah, so just go to the tree view. Yeah, insert. Yeah, try and drag something from right there too.
Okay. So what I could do, I'm here within the text and I just drag the button.
No, do insert. Click insert.
Okay.
And then click on text label and drag it.
Okay.
So now try insert button. And any of the, you can drop a button in.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like if I needed the name of this, I could just drag it over to this window up here. But that's also good to know though, that you don't have to just click. You could actually drag it exactly where you want it. It's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah. Similar, but not exactly like SQL. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go back here. So I'm going to give Kurt access. That's his password. Default database master. Let's execute that. Make sure that works. Okay, this use statement is not supported. So there's like things you can't do in Azure SQL, and it's a little frustrating. So instead of executing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on master. Okay, so that's exactly what that does. So I'm going to select just this code. I'll run it. Default database is not supported. Okay, well, let's take that out. And for all I know, this stuff is not used either. So I am going to execute this. There we go. We got you in, Kurt.
Phew.
So yeah, this use stuff isn't going to work. So I'm going to have to go in here and say student 01. Okay. And I'm going to say create Kururu, execute. And then it wants me to make sure I'm still in student 01. And I'm going to alter this. And Kurt, I'm going to make you a DBO of student 1, which we're already in. So I'm going to execute that. Everything looks good. So, guys, this is something important to know, especially those of you coming to the workshop on Friday, is that you really don't want to use, just give them DB reader and writer, because once you set up a connection within a Power Platform, everybody that has got environment maker privileges will be able to use that login. Now you could lock that down. See, DBOs lock that down in some way that I've never bothered to do myself. But so yeah, the connection, you can set it up so only users within that environment can or can't use that connection. So I've seen that, but I like to create a user login for each app I work on. So that's how you would do that. Okay. Now, what we do now is I'm going to go back into my app called Sprocks. Okay. And let's go into database. Let's say add. We'll go look for SQL Server. It will be red. And there it is right there. And if you don't see it, you can always go up here to the top and say SQL. And then you'll notice, oh, I could connect to MySQL, Postgres. Yeah. Azure Database for SQL. Now, I normally just hit SQL Server. How is this different? I'm not sure. Andrew, have you ever
I've
worked?
only used the red one.
Okay.
So the SQL Server. But yeah, notice the premium diamond there. This is all premium Power Apps.
For all of them.
I think MySQL is different than SQL Server anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an open source, as well as Postgres is open source. But the connector that was created by who created this?
Yep.
It will usually tell you who the people were that created it. So I'm going to say maybe Microsoft created it. But if there's a custom, like one that was provided by another corporation, it's typically a premium.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen ones that don't need a premium license, Andrew, that were made by somebody else other than Microsoft?
Facebook, maybe.
Okay. Let's see there. And
maybe that's Power Automate. There's LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft now too.
Yeah. Wait, Facebook owns LinkedIn?
No, Microsoft.
Oh, Microsoft owns
Microsoft owns
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So maybe there's a few in there, but nothing I would really use. Maybe I'm thinking Facebook in Power Automate. So if we had Power Automate open and we had that connector.
Right.
But yeah, usually third party or real big data is premium. And that's not just premium for you, the developer. That's premium for every user that uses the app.
Okay. So I'm going to connect to a SQL Server. And well, this is weird because I thought it was going to prompt me for my logon and my password for the SQL connection.
It should, but I think maybe you're delayed. You might need to refresh your browser or something.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool though. You got tables, and you got stored procedures over there. You see that?
Yeah.
That was smooth, man.
Yeah.
Because it was hung up on the Excel too. Maybe it's hung up on all our connectors.
Yeah. Now I do have a virtual machine running in Azure right now. I could pull that up and it'd probably be a lot faster. Okay. I want to go over to data sources, add data, connectors, SQL Server. Oh,
there it is. Yeah.
I already have a connection made. So if you guys haven't done this already, go into Power Apps and you see these little things here on the side. Okay. And it's connections.
Yeah, they moved it around and then you have new connection up there. Yeah. Search for Facebook here.
Oh, okay.
See if it shows up. Not saying you should ever connect to your Power app or I swear I've seen it. Maybe it's only in Power Automate.
Huh.
But not saying
we had access to everything Power Automate did, but obviously not. Okay, so we'll go down SQL Server. All right.
Here you go. Yeah.
Authentication type. I mean, maybe there's a reason why you'd want to use one of these others, but I'm just going to use SQL Server Authentication. Boom. The server name. Okay, well, the name of the server, if you're connecting it, if you're connected to it over SSMS, you could right click on this. I'm typically used to right clicking on a server. So this is Power Labs, which is right here. If I right click on this and go to properties, I could just copy this. Boom, copy. Okay. And I'll bring that there. And I'm going to type in that fully qualified server name. And then you've got a database name. So let's go get it's student 01. Okay. And I want to click on create.
Can you scroll down maybe?
Ah, yeah, thank you.
There we go.
Okay, so username, Carteroo, password, this password from 1869. Paste that in there. There we go. Choose a gateway. No, I don't want to use a data gateway. Create. All right, there we go. So I go down here.
Last one.
And yeah, the last one. And
Is it
now
connected? I can't see from the view.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There's Josh. How you doing, man?
Good morning.
Hey, Josh.
Morning. So I have access to it, and I'm the owner. What I could do is add everyone in my org, and let's see what things that we have to choose from here.
If it lets you.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing. Can use, okay. Yeah, that's frustrating. It's really frustrating because when I was working with Kurt back in 1998, 1999, I was thinking, man, can you imagine where we'll be at 2020? I thought we'd be flying around in cars that flew, and no, drop downs don't work.
Hopefully the save button worked. No, it's still grayed out. I don't know.
Everything else in my life just works, but this drop down,
No.
nope.
That's a quote from was that Pitch Perfect 2?
Yeah, Pitch Perfect.
And there was this guy, he was an executive, and he's like, the screen won't pull up my laptop, or what do we get? And there was an intern named Dax, and he goes, Dax, do you realize that everything else in my life just works?
Just works. Not this though.
Fix it. So I guess at this point I can't cancel. The cancel's grayed out. I don't have save. So I'm gonna hit the X, I guess. That's what I'm supposed to do. Then go over here and we'll add data again.
Might have to refresh. We'll find out.
Yeah.
That could be it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the 3 dots right there next to add data. Does that let you refresh?
Up here?
Yeah. Oh no, remove. Okay.
Now there was something that I saw within here. I wonder if it would help us out. If no.
God, that's scary. Remove unused data sources. Holy cow. Is it what they think is unused or what I think is unused?
If you don't reference it anywhere in your project, I would imagine.
I hope that's what it does. Yeah. I've never clicked that button.
Now, if I click on add a new collection, yeah, it's going to take me to this.
Yeah, it's back to creating it again. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to save, and then I'll refresh it. So, Josh, you got anything that you've been dying to say? I see you chat a lot over the private chat. So you've worked with SQL Server a lot?
No, not really a lot. Enough to really know the backbone and got it on.
Okay.
I like it's very up my alley. Coming from, the old school programming myself as well.
Okay. So you program in Assembler too? Or C++ or C?
I got my Texas Instruments that hooked to my TV in the 80s.
Now,
So, based
Kurt, I'm expecting you to translate that.
I heard Texas Instruments, cutting teeth on Texas Instruments. So that's all I needed to know. So yeah,
Yeah, it came over really distorted. So
yeah, Josh is in the worst part of Rockford for cell phone service, I think.
yeah. Remember the Matrix when
Yeah. So probably if with your photo on, it's probably going to mess you up. If you take your camera off, you might be able to hear.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, the video's eating up all the resources. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm starting to hear you again. Okay. Now I bet we can hear him.
so over here in Power Apps, I don't have any tables, and that makes sense, right? So I at least want one table. I'm going to right click, say new table. And I'm going to act like I'm a SharePoint list. And I'm going to say title. Say varchar. Isn't a single line of text 255, Andrew?
I mean,
Yep, that's
you
correct.
could have at least thought it was Dataverse and put name in there.
Name is how it is if you're in a SharePoint library, actually. It's actually name instead of title.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh, try it out. Say something. See if we can hear you now that you hid your.
Yeah.
Yeah, much better.
Quite a bit better. Yeah. And then what I like to do, if we're going to be like a SharePoint list, this is actually how I like to create my tables. What I'm talking about is this ID thing here. So I've got ID. It's going to be an integer. This is going to be the primary key. But what I like is using this identity specification. I'm going to turn this on. Now, you guys remember in Microsoft Access, you have an auto number type. That's what this is. And that's what you get with ID in SharePoint. So
you get the same thing in Dataverse, right? The auto number. I believe there is an auto number type. Maybe I'm wrong.
There is an auto
I feel like
number
I've seen
type.
that.
But the auto number is weird, Andrew. Like,
Is it? Okay.
yeah, it tries to. It's going to be a string. You can't have it as a number, like an integer.
That is weird.
And there's all kinds of things that it wants you to prefix things, and you got some flexibility, but it's like, man, I just want an integer, you know?
Yeah, I just want a simple.
It's almost
one, two,
like
three,
they're
four,
trying to
five.
make a grid out of it or something, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And you don't have Booleans in Dataverse.
No.
In SQL Server, you have bit. What it does is it creates a choice column within Dataverse for yes, no.
Oh, wow.
So it's
I did
not
not know
even
that. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
And
not know that. Yeah.
Andrew, how do you feel about choice columns, Andrew? I don't want to get off too far.
I saw that Darren had a video about don't use choice columns again, but I haven't watched it yet. So,
well, the first thing I say in the first 2 seconds, never, ever, 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 never, ever.
In Power Apps, I do not use choice columns much.
Yeah.
I would rather do the choice drag and drop, in Power Apps, and then write to a single line text.
That's what I recommended in that video.
Yeah, that's what I do most of the time, because when I think about this is, if you want to go back and edit a Power App, where do you want to edit it? Do you want to edit it in the data source, or do you want to edit it in Power Apps?
Yeah.
Right. So if I want to change a field to a choice, I'm going to do that in Power Apps, not in my data source.
Yeah.
I really don't like users changing data directly to the data source.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they're bypassing all the business rules I set up.
So I stay away from choices in the data source, but not in like I still use the choice, the drop downs and the combo boxes in Power Apps, but I write them to a single line text.
Right. That's different.
Yeah.
That's not really a complex data type now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I just don't like complex data types at all. Just keep it simple, man.
Exactly.
Now, do you guys see a key at the very top of the screen? It's a little bitty key.
Yeah.
So what I do I wanted to sort of zoom in there, and you hover over it, says set primary key. That's exactly what I want to do. And I'm going to hit that button. There we go. And I want to make sure this identity specification is on, and it looks like I did. Okay. And now I'm going to hit save. And now it wants a table name. And the first table I like to create is like some type of a model table. And I like to create columns for created by, modified, last modified, and last modified by. So I'd probably put all that stuff in there as well. But for this one, I'll just say model. So at least now we have a database table. Now, if we want to put records into that, I could right click here and say refresh. Okay. Now you could use a script that says insert, which will insert a row or add a new row to that table and do all that. Or if you got SSMS and you just want some test data, what you could do is right click on this table. And instead of select, we'll say edit the top 200. And let's see if it gives us what I'm expecting here. It is. Okay. And I wish I could just zoom with the SSMS. I mean, I use the zoom it tool, but I got to get out to start typing here. So I'll say Darren. There we go. We got Kurt. And we also have Andrew. Okay. And so now we've got some data. And now, I'm going to exit out of that. And let's see what we got over here now. Do we have any store procedures? Nope, not yet. I was sort of wanting to get to creating a hello world store procedure by the end of this, but we're running out of time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add table connectors. I'm going to go down and get SQL Server now. And
something that Darren did just a second ago, if he edits stuff, if he edits the data table from within Power Apps, it does a refresh automatically. You don't have to go in there and refresh your data, just for people that didn't know that.
So if I do what?
If you edit your data from within Power Apps, you know how you went over there to edit? If you look at my finger,
yeah,
you follow my finger where I'm pointing there, the data.
Yeah. So I want to sort of demonstrate what he was just talking about. So if I go in here, now I'm used to Dataverse having that ability. If it's a SharePoint, I love it. It will just open up that SharePoint list in a new tab. But for Dataverse, if I say add data and I've got accounts, I'll bring over a Dataverse table here. It used to be if you go over to the data source and mess with the schema or anything or add records, it doesn't know about it, you know? So I'm going to go to accounts and I'm going to say edit data and it brings it up in a pop-up. So this is what you were talking about, right, Kurt?
Right. And then when you leave.
So let me change somebody's name here.
Yeah.
I'll take out the sample stuff. And then I'll hit close. There are errors.
You got to press enter. You got to go back.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there you go.
Close. There we go. See, it did a refresh there at the end. So that is actually a really cool thing, Kurt. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. So now that I've got this model database table, let me just take all this stuff out. Now, Andrew, have you used the modern grid control? I think it's called a table control.
I think I touched on it a little bit. Let me see which one you're talking about. You're talking about the table for modern?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's still missing some functionality, but so is the old classic table. So,
yeah, it's still in preview.
Yeah.
So if we say classic table, it blows my mind. This has been out here for years, right? I'm going to go over to modern and I'm just going to say table. Okay.
For the question there, model driven, you're kind of limited on the UI UX design.
Yeah.
So if you really want UI UX and make it incredibly beautiful with all kinds of crazy functionality. That's a good reason to use Canvas over model.
I think what he's asking is, if you're not developing model driven, why would you use Dataverse over Azure? So if you're not using model driven, why are you using Dataverse?
I guess it would be where you're comfortable.
Copilot is sort of cool if you really enjoy that.
I like the lookups. I like the lookup fields of Dataverse. I think that's just so powerful, being able to access an entire record right from you just address the one field and you got access to the whole record at that point. So you can say customer dot lookup or customer lookup, and then you go dot, you got the whole customer record with you now. And you might, if you're over in the many side, you know what I mean?
I will say I'm more comfortable in SQL just because that's where I'm used to going. And actually, maybe there's a lot more people that know SQL more than Dataverse. Dataverse is new-ish. There's a lot of new functionality. So
it's not as powerful or as flexible as SQL.
Correct. Yeah. Or customizable. Yeah.
Right. It's like Darren said, it's SQL with training wheels. It's SQL Server with training wheels.
So you see that we brought over our data, the 3 records there.
Beautiful.
And at first it's got built-in sorting and filtering, I guess. It's dimmed out, and we've got a total down here. That's sort of cool. I think we've got pagination built into this control. Now, originally when they first came out, it says only for Dataverse, but then it changed. It was like open to.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Okay, so let's see if we could create a Sprock here really quick. So I'm going to, so we've got that. I'm going to go down to programmability and double click on that, because that's where all these other good things are at. You guys see all this cool stuff that we have down there. Store procedures, functions, database triggers, assemblies, so on and so forth. Okay. So what I could do is go into store procedures and, let's see if we have any. We don't. Now we do have system store procedures. Oh, we've got a lot of those. Okay, system store procedures. Well, they've got a different schema, but you'll see just SP underscore. A lot of places I've worked at, they always want to have you create your store procedure name with USP, user defined store procedure. Okay. Now, what I want to do, I can't right click and get a GUI here. So I'm going to open up my templates. Okay. And I'm going to go find store procedure. Okay, I want to create a, let's say, a natively compiled store procedure. We could do that. Here's a basic one. Well, let's start off with a basic one. New. I typically just double click on it. That brings it up. Okay. Now I'll get rid of that thing there, and this is pretty straightforward. It might seem like a bunch of junk here, but it's going to search for the store procedure. Is it already in there? And if it is there, it's going to drop it, because if it already existed and is going to do a create, then there'll be an error. Okay. So what we need to do is come up with a store procedure name and put it right in here. So I'm going to say DBO USP underscore say hello. So that's going to be the name of this database object, the store procedure. Oh, wait. Yeah, the schema will be DBO. Then I won't put DBO there. It's been a while since I've created a store procedure from scratch. So we'll say DBO there.
Okay.
So now you notice we had some.
That's the object where it's being stored at then. And then the name.
Yeah. I was hoping to get at all this other stuff here. DBO, say hello. Okay. We got that. And now I want to copy that. And I'm going to paste it here. And these are parameters, which we'll probably go over on Friday. We'll get in much more depth here. And you think of the select statement as, okay, I'm going to select star from table name, and the DBAs will all cringe that I said star, because you're going to get all the columns. But no, let's just go in here. Select is something like you're just going to
display it on the screen,
or that's what you're going to return. And I'm going to say hello world. Okay. And then down here, we're going to execute it to see if it works.
I like it.
You like that?
I do.
Oh yeah, nice and simple.
All right. So I'm just going to run this. Cross your fingers. I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully it does.
So
Look at that.
Hey.
But that's where
Hello
you would
world.
that's where you would put your parameters at though in this store procedure is in a select, huh?
No,
That's
your
good.
parameters. Hold on. Let me open this up a little more here. Create procedure. And then you put your parameters in here.
Got it.
Now, Andrew, am I supposed to have parentheses in here for the parameters? It's just been a while. I don't use this every day.
Definitely don't know off the top of my head.
All right. Well, that's something maybe we can kind of explore during the workshop.
Yeah. I want to tell Chatty, give me an example of a T-SQL Sprock with a simple parameter. Let's see if it comes to my rescue here.
Yeah,
see-
Andrew,
ahead.
while he's doing that, I'm going to have to leave in about 5 minutes, but I didn't know where you guys were going to be. And I just wanted to say it was really, I'm really grateful that you were here. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. It was great, man.
Oh, you too. So maybe someday in the future, we can meet
Yeah.
in person. So
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
all for it.
man.
If you guys
Yeah.
ever go to conferences or somewhere where I can meet you, let me
Yeah.
know.
I can see why you're a good trainer. You're definitely somebody I'd want to hang out with. I can see why you're a good
Yeah.
trainer. People are going to like that,
The only problem is we go on tangents, but it's a good thing. That makes it more human, right? So, yeah, we go on tangents and.
You
Yeah.
should see my classes. You talk about tangents.
Favorite food. So we don't need parentheses. It's just pretty much every variable that you create, which a parameter is essentially a local
Yeah, it looks
variable.
like at.
Yeah, you always got to use that at and then give it a type. Favorite food, varchar, single line of text there, right? And then let's just execute it and see if that works with those parameters in there. Oh, expects a parameter username, which was not supplied. Oh, so down here where you execute it to test it out, I'm going to say Darren, and everybody's favorite food is pizza, right?
You might have to do an equal sign there, or
Yeah.
I see execute DBO at whatever your username is equals Darren.
So let me see what okay, yeah. That is actually true as well. If you look at what I've got here, let me get rid of all my chats on the
There
side.
it is. There you go. Yeah,
Where?
Yeah, that's
Down.
exactly what it did.
right there.
So if you want to name them, so let's say some of them are optional. You don't want to say null, which so that's NULL, and for databases that no information is there. You can just name them off like that. So I could say, and I sort of do like this. So we could do that there. And I think this is better code because I don't have to go look at the Sprock. Hey, what's that first one? What's the second one? So very cool. And
There we
then,
go. Yeah.
so hello, instead of saying world, we can concatenate these variables. Okay, so I'll say that hello username with an exclamation point. I see that you like at favorite food.
Perfect.
Very nice.
And boom. Hello, Darren. I see that you like pizza. Okay. Now check this out. We could comment that code out. Then we could say select star from, drag it over, table, and boom, there's the table.
Nice.
And I could go like my brain's going over with all kinds of ideas of things that we could do in here.
Well, good.
But-
Keep thinking about that for the workshop. So we got so we can do some of these cool things.
So we connected. So hopefully you guys have SSMS installed. There's another program that you could use called Azure. I'm trying to recall the name. It's like Azure SQL, some type of interface. It's more lightweight. It can be installed on a Mac or other operating systems, where the SSMS can only be installed on Windows. It has a lot more features though. We learned how to create users. We created a connection with the Power Apps environment, create a connection to the table, Sprock. And Andrew, is there anything else that you'd like to add to this?
Well, I could talk forever. We already talked about how I got started. COVID was the main reason I got started with Power Apps.
Same here.
Yeah, that was the main reason that kind of set off everything. Work at home. We needed a form. We needed a form now. We couldn't wait to develop something 6 months down the road. We needed something now. So Power Apps was the key there, the rapid building software development. My favorite Power Apps app. Well, actually, so last year I actually won a or award for my Power App.
Really?
If you want to look it up. Look up NACO awards.
Kurt, do you have an award for your apps?
Yeah, go to Google.
All right.
And then type in NACO.
NACO.
And then awards, and then type in lease with the number 2 home.
Lease.
Yep.
Number 2 home.
But no spaces and no number symbol. Yeah, there we go.
I'm excited to see this.
So yeah, right there. And if you find, let's see if we scroll down here.
Yeah. I'm going to share this link with everybody.
Let's make sure we got the right thing. We're going to show the winner. If you keep going down. Oh yeah. So find Wake County. It's going to be under housing, home. Wake, WAKE. Oh, there it is right there. You got it right there. So this is actually our Power App that won an award, national, for all counties. I can't share the Power App with you because it's confidential, but that is the award we won for our Power Platform. Best in category. So we helped house people, low income, find houses in our county. So actually pretty cool. Saved a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars using Power Apps than doing this full software development.
It's very cool.
So go ahead.
Well, if you have another thought, I want you to go first.
I wouldn't say that's my favorite, but I would say that's the most successful one. So
okay.
Yeah, that's the most successful one. So really neat that we won that.
Yeah. It's sort of like the kryptonite to doing a good portfolio is like everything is covered under an NDA or, yeah, it's sort of unfortunate, but
and one reason I love to work for the government is I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. Like it's not about profit. We actually, as it says down there, we added 300 affordable units to the database and, so this was for landlords to join this program, and they could join this program for lease to home, and we made a difference in our county. So I know that's, very righteous, but I don't know. To me, it feels like my work matters. So
that's right.
That's huge.
It's kind of like it does. That is huge, and that spells a lot about your character. And that's kind of the way Darren I work with the accelerator and with some of this stuff. We care about relationships. We care about building relationships with the people that we're working with, and making a difference and empowering people. That's it's a big deal. That's more than any of the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the money is a necessary evil because we got to keep the lights on, but more than anything, it's about empowering people.
Definitely. So, go ahead.
I think the big question that should be in everyone's mind is what video to watch next. For some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, got to hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want.